Cool Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host, the Yao Ming of Revolution. And Trump has unleashed tariffs today, y'all. I think China, Mexico, Canada. Mexico talking about taxing us back. I need to look into that, those products that come from Mexico. But China is not to be played with. Before we get into that, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button. Like, share, subscribe, support the platform, y'all. Let's get into the content. What has Trump done?
Alright, guys, so the backlash is starting. Now, when you start a global trade war, it's not just a one-way street. Sure, it feels fun to impose tariffs on allies and adversaries alike, but it can always hit back. And now we have countries all over the world starting to boycott US goods. This is
Now,
horrific for Trump's economy.
this is something y'all absolutely got to pay attention to. This is just not some news. This is your pocketbooks. You will be getting hit in certain products you get. So it's very important to know what countries is talking about tax and tariffing us back, putting tariffs on products. I know Mexico, a lot of I think fruits and things of that nature is coming from Mexico. Oh, also cars. A lot of our cars are made in Mexico. I've seen that too. So it's a lot of economic pain is going to be coming. I think Trump needs to stop listening to those small hats in the U.S. Government, because they're going to be hurting us behind these ridiculous policies.
Economy. There isn't a need to counter tariffs when you simply stop buying altogether.
And I'm going to call on Canadians to stop going to Florida, to stop buying Florida orange juice, because that's a $50 billion economy in that state alone. Canadians matter to the United States.
Beneath the veneer of economic strength, the US economy is actually one gigantic house of cards. Now, what we saw in 2024 was an economy running on nearly $2 trillion worth of deficits, but domestic sales are falling. US consumers are expecting higher inflation. Egg prices in the US are also setting new insane records, especially in the Midwest. People are buying eggs for over $8 a dozen, which is insane. This chart almost looks like hyperinflation in Argentina. And let's not forget the big GDP revision in Q1 to minus 1.5%. We are halfway towards a US recession. It's a disaster in the making for Donald Trump. The last thing you need are global boycotts of US goods. You are already cutting federal workers like no tomorrow. And if private sector jobs get clobbered, a massive consumption collapse will happen. However, it's already too late. People in Canada are starting to hit back against the threat of tariffs. In a recent survey, over 85% of Canadians have pledged to boycott US goods. Either they were planning to replace or they have already replaced US products when shopping. And that's just on a grocery aisle and in the shopping malls. US goods coming into Canada are being boycotted. Canadians alone spend a ton of money to fund the US economy. Now just think of all the holiday trips. Who do you think are the biggest visitors to the United States? It's not the Chinese or not any country in the EU. It's from Trump's neighbors up north. In 2024, Canadians visiting the United States accounted for an incredible $20.5 billion in spending. The US is not a manufacturing economy anymore. It's a service-based economy. And we are talking about restaurants, gift shops, movie theaters, and theme parks. The majority of these are non-essentials and can be skipped, especially in a trade war. And if Trump decides to prosecute his tariff war pedal to the metal, he will push Canada into a recession. And when people lose their jobs, when people are broke and angry, do you think they will want a holiday in the United States? Very simple question. According to the US Travel Association, the damage could be extensive, and it's just in tourism alone. A 10% reduction would mean 2 million fewer visits from Canadians, and that would result in $2 billion of lost spending, resulting in 14,000 job losses. Then this is the result of a trade war, mutually assured economic destruction. The world won't just roll over and play dead. They will strike back because at this point, there's really nothing left to lose.
Word tariff is my favorite word in the dictionary. You know, we were the richest relatively from,
Making a
think
home.
of this, from 1870 to 1913. That was our richest because we collected tariffs from foreign countries that came in and took our jobs and took our money, took our everything. But they charged tariffs, and we had so much money, they set up the 1887 to determine where we should spend all of the tremendous, vast wealth that we had. We had so much wealth.
When Trump decided to impose his tariffs on the world, he also added a clause that if countries dare to retaliate with their own tariffs, he would increase the punishments. But what if people completely stop buying? What if it's a grassroots level thing? That is technically not a counter tariff, and that's why boycotts can be devastating for the US economy. In 2024, Canada was the most important hub for US exports. US companies sold nearly $350 billion worth of goods and services into the country in the first 3 quarters alone. Now, if you add Mexico and China into the mix, more than $1 trillion worth of US exports depends on Trump's biggest trading partners. The problem here is the types of products the US sells into Canada. Over 75% of US exports are machinery, transport equipment, and manufactured goods. And because they are made in the US, prices are definitely much higher than imports from, say, China. And this puts US industries in a very vulnerable position should the boycott spread. Now, many of this equipment can be replaced with Chinese-made alternatives, and most likely you'll be paying much less for the same quality, if not even better quality. So instead of a tractor made by John Deere or Caterpillar, consumers can just order one from China at half or even a quarter of the price. While Trump wants to make America great again, it's important to remember we all live in a global economy. A ton of US companies rely on foreign earnings to stay afloat. Now, in 2023, nearly 30% of S&P revenue came from foreign buyers. Consumers from China, Canada, Mexico, and the world, they contributed over $4.6 trillion to US companies. And this cuts through every single sector, from consumer staples and discretionary to IT. Around 30% of total revenue came from foreign consumers. Big tech is the most exposed, with nearly 60% of total sales coming from foreigners. So a boycott can hammer down on US companies, and Trump won't be able to officially retaliate on this. Now, we have to understand the mechanics of Trump's tariffs and how this will backfire on US companies. Now, while it's true that inflation will rise for US consumers and crash domestic demand, that's just one half of the story. That is the US-centric view. But we need to broaden our horizons further a bit. Asian currencies, for example, continue to collapse against the dollar thanks to the tariff threat. As Trump restricts imports into the US, the flow of dollars to the world starts to dry up. And that drives the dollar up and causes global currencies to crash down. And in this case, Asian currencies fell by 1%. So now imports cost more, especially if they are coming in from the US. So now US companies, they are facing a double whammy. You have angry people who are now poorer and they can't afford US goods. How is this not going to crash S&P earnings? Now, we don't need to be an economist or have a PhD to figure this one out. Buying US products will be out of reach for some. Others, well, they'll simply boycott them because they're pissed off. Now, a recent poll found that Canadians are starting to shun Amazon to protest against the United States. 55% of people said they were ordering less from Amazon. In addition, 66% of people all said they were buying fewer American items from physical stores as well. The boycotts are getting worse. The US economy can't afford to lose the Canadian market, not when Trump wants to make America great again. But the situation is going to get worse. Now, so far we have talked about boycotts mainly from Canada, but what China has in store is far worse and long-lasting. When it comes to a trade war, China's biggest weapon is their supply chains. They love to cut critical minerals to the US, we all know that. But Beijing also has another trump card, pun not intended, and that's the size of their consumer market for food. We have reports that China's next target could be US agriculture and food products, basically targeting US farmers. Soy meal prices in China are starting to climb since December, which is very alarming. It's up by almost 3% higher in a matter of weeks. Soy meal is an input used in food and animal feed. It's what livestock eat. And since prices are rising, it's a clear signal that Beijing is mobilizing their farming industry. The Chinese are preparing for something big. Now let's recall the previous trade war with China back in 2018. One of Beijing's hitback was on US farms. The Chinese simply stopped buying a ton of US farm products. They slapped a 25% tariff on imports of US soybeans, beef, pork, wheat, and corn. And that forced China to grow their own food and import from other countries like Brazil. They became more self-sufficient. Now, needless to say, that collapsed Chinese imports of US agriculture to nearly zero. And this has happened before, and this card is now back on the table. In 2018, it wasn't pretty. Local farmers took the brunt of the pain, and in a sense, a trade war was deindustrializing America's food production.
Farmers in the U.S. say the disruption of normal trade with China has forced many of them to go bankrupt. Dean Reynolds is in Princeton, Illinois. That's about 90 miles west of Chicago, with a story of one farmer who says he wants business, not a bailout.
Yeah, we've seen decreased profits for the last 6 years, and Mother Nature's throwing us a pretty tough spring. So it's definitely not an easy time to be a farmer.
You don't want assistance, right? You want markets, don't you?
Ideally, we would love to have markets, right? Exports is what we're good at, and that's what we want. We'd love to see resolution to the trade war. Every day that this ticks on, farmers are the ones that are taking it on the jaw.
How long is this going to go on before you say, hey, this is too much? You're ruining us out here.
I think to a point you could say we're already there. Farm bankruptcies are up all over, and we're just not in an economy that can handle this stress much longer.
The collapse of US farms can be traced back to Trump's first trade war. It revolves around China being more self-sufficient. And now that demand for US food imports have dropped, profits will also drop in tandem. Basic supply and demand here. As a result, the US is no longer a net food exporter. Since 2019, the farm deficit has been growing. In other words, America has been importing more food than it exports. The US is now dependent on the world to feed itself, a drastic shift from decades ago. In 2025, this deficit is about to hit $49 billion. Everything revolves around the cost of production, and this applies to cars, semiconductors, and growing food. If Trump continues his trade war on China, we could see Chinese demand for US food collapse to literally zero once again. And we're not talking about hypotheticals. This happened 7 years ago, and it would most definitely happen again. Food exports used to be a tool of US diplomacy. You can send food to starving countries and spread your influence. You can then secure vital relationships and alliances. But because of high production, that card is gone. The situation is about to get much worse. This year alone, US imports of food will climb by nearly 7%. And this would include avocados, orange juice, and coffee. Meanwhile, exports are expected to decline by over 2%. So farm revenues are about to take a beating while the US trade deficit continues to climb. And this is the hidden part of the trade war Trump isn't telling everyone about. It's far worse than the boycotts up north and tourists staying home. This is the issue with Trump's tariff war. Does it bring production back to the US? Sure. Does it help reshore jobs? It may very well do so to a certain extent. However, tariffs cause the prices of everything to rise. US farms are not profitable anymore, and Trump is upping the stakes. He is now imposing, this is crazy, he's now imposing a tariff on food imports coming into the United States. And here's his message to US farmers. Get ready to start making a lot of agricultural products to be sold inside of the United States. Tariffs will go on external products on April the 2nd. He wants to punish over $100 billion of food imports from Mexico, Canada, and the EU. Now, once again, for the 100th time, tariffs are taxed on the buyers. US farms will raise prices because they simply have no choice. Production costs are much higher domestically than in Mexico. Now the hammer is going to fall on food prices. So going forward, Americans can expect their food bills to fly up. Cheap imports are over and consumer inflation is going to soar. So take a deep breath and prepare. Trump's tariffs are going into effect really soon. There's a reason why the markets are collapsing, because a trade war is never good, not even for the US economy. The US is not exceptional. The United States is not immune. But let me know what you think. Will
antimony ore producer operating and controlling 50 to 60% of the market.
China banning elements like antimony. These are used to build microchips, military equipment. These are precious metals.
China has banned the export of some materials essential to the manufacturing of electronics and some military equipment to the U.S.
Meanwhile, there's this China banning antimony exports that are vital for America's economic and national security.
China has announced a ban on exports to the United States of critical materials, including antimony.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Geopolitics and Money, formerly Geopolitics in Conflict. With the United States terminating its support for Ukraine, is the US-Europe relationship at a breaking point? The transatlantic alliance between the United States and Europe has long been a cornerstone of global stability and security, mainly for Europe. However, recent geopolitical shifts, particularly under the current President Trump's administration, have introduced significant strains. Trump's overture to Russia's President Vladimir Putin, coupled with the sharp rebukes of European allies, in addition to tariffs, have sent shockwaves throughout the continent.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has now left the White House after things got heated with President Donald Trump.
As the United States appears to pull back from its traditional commitments, questions arise. Can the transatlantic alliance be salvaged? Can Europe take charge of its own security? These concerns are further compounded by critical resource dependency, notably China's tightening grip on essential minerals like antimony, vital for the military industry. I want to say thank you to our sponsor, and I'm going to say more about it as I move forward in this analysis here. Trump overtures to Putin and European reactions. In his second term, President Trump has pursued a foreign policy that emphasizes rapprochement with Russia. This approach includes scaling back U.S. military presence in Europe and reducing support for Ukraine amidst its ongoing conflict with Russia. Such actions have been perceived by European leaders as a departure from established transatlantic norms, leading to a sense of abandonment and uncertainty. Michael Roth, a senior German lawmaker, described Trump's stance as a complete failure for the transatlantic alliance, highlighting the deepening rift between the United States and its European partners. The implications of this policy shift are profound. By declaring that the United States will not provide security guarantees to Ukraine or to the European troops potentially deployed there, Trump has inevitably raised doubts about whether the United States would stand by its NATO allies in the event of an attack. Without the security commitment that underpins it, the transatlantic relationship is starting to look like one-sided dependence. Europe responses a call for strategic autonomy. In light of the US's shifting stance, European nations are re-evaluating their security and defense strategies. The concept of strategic autonomy has gained traction emphasizing the need for Europe to develop independent defense capabilities. This includes increasing defense spending, enhancing military cooperation among EU member states, and reducing reliance on US military support. Herein the fact, China and Russia control nearly 100% of the world's antimony supply, a metal European countries do not have and are at the mercy of outside suppliers. No antimony, that means no bullets, no missiles, and no military electronics. This metal is essential for ammunition, armor-piercing rounds, missile guidance systems, and of course, nuclear weapons. Yet the United States produces almost none of it. China's grip on critical minerals, the antimony crisis. Compounding Europe's security concerns is its dependency on critical minerals, particularly antimony, essential for military applications such as infrared missiles and ammunition. In September 2024, China, which controls over 70% of the world antimony production, imposed strict exports restrictions on the minerals. This move sent shockwaves through the international markets, driving prices to record highs and exposing vulnerabilities in global supply chains. The scarcity of antimony poses significant challenges to Europe's defense industry, which relies on a steady supply of such materials for the production of advanced military technologies. The export restrictions have forced European nations to confront the reality of their dependence on Chinese imports for critical defense components. The intersection of geopolitics, national security, and the military industry. The convergence of strained transatlantic relations and resource dependencies has profound implications for geopolitics and national security. As the United States shifts its foreign policy focus and China asserts control over essential resources, Europe finds itself at a crossroads. The need for a cohesive and independent European defense strategy has never been more pressing. Artificial intelligence, or AI, further implicates this landscape. Advanced AI systems are integral to modern military operations, from autonomous drones to sophisticated surveillance systems. The developments and deployments of these technologies require critical minerals like antimony. Once again, China's exports restrictions not only impact current military capabilities, but also hinder future advancements in AI-driven defense technologies. The transatlantic relationship stands at a critical juncture. The combination of shifting U.S. foreign policies and strategic resource dependencies has exposed vulnerabilities that must be addressed to maintain global stability. By proactively pursuing strategic autonomy and reinforcing alliances, Europe can navigate these challenges and contribute to a balanced and secure international order. This leads me to talk about something very, very important. America's national security is under a silent but profound threat, one that has slipped beneath the radar of mainstream discourse. The near total control of antimony supplies by China and Russia. This obscure metal, critical to the production of ammunition, armor-piercing rounds, missile guidance systems, and military electronics, is a linchpin of modern defense. Yet, the United States produces virtually none of it domestically, leaving its military dangerously exposed. As geopolitical tensions rise and global supply chain fractures, companies like Military Metal Corp, U.S. stock ticker MILM, UNLEASHES are emerging as a vital player in addressing this crisis, offering investors a unique opportunity to back a solution to a pressing national security challenge. Antimony's role in warfare is not new. It was dubbed the secret metal that helped win World War II for its use in hardening alloys and enhancing munition during the Allied efforts. Today, its importance has only grown with applications in night vision goggles, infrared sensors, and advanced battery technology. The US military relies heavily on this resource, yet it has outsourced its supply for decades, with China commanding roughly 50% of global production. This dependency was manageable until it wasn't. In December 2024, China imposed stringent export restrictions on antimony, slashing global availability and sending prices soaring to over $50,000 per ton. This wasn't just a market shock, it was a strategic move, amplifying a vulnerability that Russia, another key producer, could further exploit amidst its ongoing tensions with the West. The fallout for the Pentagon is dire. With no significant domestic antimony production, the US military faces a scramble to secure alternative as stockpiles dwindle. A Carnegie Endowment report warns that in a large-scale conflict, the United States could face shortfalls in 69 critical minerals, with current reserves covering only 40% of needs in a one-year war scenario. Antimony's absence could cripple the production of artillery shells, vital in conflicts like Ukraine, leaving America's defense systems at risk. This isn't speculation. It's a stark reality unfolding now as NATO defense spending surges past $1.5 trillion annually, driven by heightened global threats. Enter today's sponsor, Military Metal Corp, a Canadian exploration company stepping boldly into this breach. Unlike traditional miners chasing gold or lithium, Military Metals is laser focused on securing Western-controlled antimony sources, positioning itself as a publicly traded lifeline for national security. Its flagship project, the Trochajova antimony gold property in Slovakia within the European Union, is a game changer. Previously explored during the Soviet era, the project was earmarked to become a mine that was never built as the Cold War ended in 1992. The brownfield site boasts a historical resource of approximately 2,500,000 tons of ore grading 2.5% antimony and 0.6 GPT gold, based on extensive drilling and underground data. Located in a NATO-aligned nation, Trochajova offers Europe a chance to reduce reliance on adversarial suppliers with military metal, aiming to fast-track it into production. The recently adopted Critical Raw Material Act in the European Union allows this project to be fast-tracked. Closer to home, the company's West Core antimony project in Nova Scotia, Canada, adds another layer of promise. Once Canada's largest antimony producer during World War I, West Gore is a historic site with untapped potential. Surface piles of ore from past operations remain, offering a rare, quick-to-market opportunity, a critical advantage in a crisis where time is of the essence. The company's CEO, Scott Eldridge, emphasized this strategic vision in a small-cap investor interview, stating, and I quote, "We are addressing the critical need for antimony in defense, creating real solutions for secure supply chain.
Hey, salute to our brother Warren Ware for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is a way of life. Absolutely appreciate the love, family. Salute to you.
End of quote. With antimony prices up 228% in 2024 alone, the economics align with the urgency. The United States government recognizes this imperative. The Department of Defense's $1.83 billion investments in Perpetua Resources, Idaho, antimony project signals a broader push to bolster domestic supplies. Perpetua, valued at $700 million with 90,000 tons of antimony, mirrors military metals potential, yet military metals with a market cap of just $25 million and a historical resource of 60,998 tons at Trohayova alone, appears significantly undervalued. Its in situ value exceeds $3 billion at current prices, a disparity that savvy investors might see as a ground floor opportunity in a sector poised for explosive growth. The stakes couldn't be higher. China's exports ban, coupled with Russia's unpredictable role, underscores the fragility of relying on foreign powers for a mineral so vital to national defense. Oilprice.com notes that antimony's scarcity could spark a new resource war, with Western militaries racing to secure supplies aimed at escalating conflicts. Military Metals isn't just a mining company. It's a strategic asset, diversifying its portfolio across Slovakia, Nova Scotia, and Nevada to mitigate risk and maximize impact. Its brownfield approach, leveraging existing infrastructure, slashes development timelines compared to greenfield projects, offering a faster path to production. For investors, the value proposition is clear. Military Metals aligns profit potential with geopolitical necessity, a rare dual mandate. As NATO ramps up munition production, think about, for example, 2 million artillery shells by 2025 per the AU. And this initiative, antimony demands will only climb. The company's projects, backed by historical data and modern exploration, position it to capitalize on this surge. Moreover, potential government funding, like Canada's $3.8 billion critical mineral strategy, could further accelerate its growth, reducing financial risk for shareholders. In conclusion, the antimony supply crisis is a national security emergency hidden in plain sight. As China and Russia tighten their grip, the United States and its allies must act swiftly to secure alternatives. Military Metal Corp offers a compelling solution and a compelling investment. By supporting this company, investors aren't just chasing returns. They are backing a mission to safeguard America's defense capabilities in a world on the edge. That's a stake worth owning. As always, do your due diligence research. And like with any investments, there are no guarantees and there are always risks. Thank you.
Did you know that a single move from China could grind U.S. weapon production to a halt? This can completely change the game, and what's coming next is even wilder than you can imagine. I'm about to show you how the U.S.-China trade war just escalated to a whole new level and is putting America's national security at risk. You may want to stick around for this. Have you heard anywhere in the news that Beijing has officially slammed the brakes on exporting some key minerals to the U.S.? And that is disrupting the production of thousands of weapons in the United States? This means America's weapon-making machine is falling apart as we speak, and trust me, it's a bigger deal than people might realize. These are not your ordinary minerals. They're extremely rare and essential.
No, but see, Trump, I think when Trump went at China, he already knew he was going to try to get these same minerals from Russia. Remember, him and Putin doing the deal, Putin already offered him rare earth minerals. Well, the only other country that really have those type of minerals is Russia. So I think Trump got that in mind. If he don't, he's absolutely making a terrible mistake.
For the U.S. military, but China and Russia hold the control over them. So what minerals are these, and why should we care? Well, by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what's at stake. But first, a little backstory. For decades, the United States of America and the People's Republic of China have been in a tug of war. The biggest players in global trade have been throwing restrictions and tariffs at each other like it's a playground fight. But last year, Washington decided to up the ante. The White House added more Chinese companies to a blacklist, cutting them off from high-tech gear as well as from tools used to make semiconductor chips and other software. Their goal? Well, to prevent China from continuing to build advanced tech for AI or military purposes far faster than the U.S. Of course, China wouldn't just sit there and take it. The Chinese government retaliated the U.S. government's measure by banning key mineral exports to America, including rocks like gallium, germanium, and antimony, which are part of the secret sauce behind semiconductors and a ton of military hardware. It's clear now that Washington's strategy has backfired terribly. What is coming next is chaos. Let me break this down to you. You need to understand a bit more about these gems to get a full picture of what's going on. First of all, gallium. It's a little gem used to manufacture all sorts of semiconductors, which are considered the brains of radar systems, night vision goggles, and virtually all electronic products. In 2023, more than 90% of the gallium bought by the U.S. came straight from China, and that's according to the annual U.S. Geological Survey. Let's move on to germanium. Did you ever wonder how soldiers see in the dark or spot heat signatures? That technology is only possible due to the use of germanium. The mineral is vital for night vision and thermal imaging gear, as well as fiber optics for communication systems. Last year, 70% of the germanium the U.S. imported came from, guess where? China. And let's move on to the third of these gems. Antimony. Bullets, explosives, batteries. What do they all have in common? Antimony. Yep, the metal is what powers ammo production in the U.S. And 48% of the world's supply belongs to, once again, you guessed, China. Here's where things start to get crazy. China isn't just the biggest supplier, but the world's dominator of all of them. The Eastern economic superpower cranks out 94% of the world's gallium and 83% of its germanium. Meanwhile, the United States barely mines any of this at home. So when the Chinese government says, no more, American weapon manufacturers are left scrambling. China's dominance has put America in a tight spot. In fact, it's a national security crisis that not...
See, this is the real reason the U.S. military won't war with China. See, you find out this type of shit. This is the real reason the U.S. military won't war with China. Because in the end, if they're not going to be nice to China, then they won't have the resources needed to make the high. Who gives a damn if you got money? You don't have the resources to make the high-end weapons. The U.S. military will never go for that.
Many are talking about, but we are here on Epic Economist. Let me explain. America's national security is at risk. China and Russia control nearly 100% of the world's antimony supply, which is a metal the United States cannot go to war without. No antimony equals no bullets, no missiles, no military electronics. This metal is essential for ammunition, armor-piercing rounds, missile guidance systems, and nuclear weapons. Yet the U.S. produces almost none of it. For decades, the West has relied on China as the dominant supply, ignoring the growing risk. Now, the crisis has arrived. China just banned antimony exports, sending prices to a record $47,500 per individual ton. The Pentagon is scrambling to secure alternative sources, but the reality is stark. The U.S. military has only, get this, 17 days worth of reserves left.
That's crazy.
Without a secure supply, America's defense systems are vulnerable. That's where Military Metals comes in. Now, this company, Military Metals, is securing a Western-controlled antimony supply, positioning itself as one of the only publicly traded solutions to this crisis. This resource is based on a Soviet-era historical resource, which is currently being converted to a modern compliant resource. In addition, Military Metals owns 2 past-producing antimony assets in North America, including the West Gore Mine in Canada, which contains surface piles of ore from previous production. With the Pentagon and NATO rushing to secure domestic supply, Military Metals is in a prime position to be part of the solution. We've already seen the U.S. Department of Defense invest $59 million into Perpetua Resources for its U.S. antimony project. With NATO defense spending projected to exceed $1.5 trillion, Military Metals could be next in line for government backing. The urgency is clear. Without antimony, modern warfare is impossible. Yet investors have barely begun to recognize the opportunity. This is one of the most overlooked national security investment opportunities. Antimony prices are soaring. The West is desperate for supply. Military Metals is one of the few companies positioned to capitalize. The world is waking up to the antimony crisis. The question is, are you ahead of the curve? You see, shortages of antimony and other mineral supplies could force U.S. weapon production to slow down or even stop. An estimate by the U.S. Geological Survey suggests that losing gallium and germanium could erase $3.4 billion from the U.S. economy every year. That's billion with a B, enough to make your head spin. But it's not just about money. Imagine a tank sitting half-built because there's no gallium for its radar, or troops going on missions without night vision gear because germanium supplies have been exhausted. That's the kind of real-world mess we're talking about. Things started to go out of hand after the administration issued the most aggressive crackdown on the Chinese semiconductor industry ever. The response of the Chinese Ministry of Commerce wasn't unprovoked. It was actually just one more move in a series of punitive export controls justified by both nations as homeland security imperatives. In December, Washington prohibited the export of 24 types of semiconductor manufacturing equipment and 3 related software tools to China, attempting to limit its ability to develop artificial intelligence for modern military applications. The export of advanced memory chips, chip-making machinery, and other semiconductor technologies was also prohibited to 140 Chinese chip manufacturers and toolmakers. These companies were also added to the U.S. Department of Commerce's Entity List, a blacklist that mandates U.S. firms to apply for export licenses that will be near impossible to secure. To make the blacklist more difficult to bypass, the U.S. government applied the Foreign Direct Product Rule, which will impact foreign companies that utilize U.S. chips in their tools and make it difficult for American firms to produce these tools in developing nations and then export them to China. The rule is designed to prevent Chinese firms from circumventing the U.S. export bans by importing chips and machinery with components designed in America. For several years, China has been making significant investments to acquire high-end weapon systems and equipment. In fact, the Chinese government is buying military tech gear at a rate that's 5 to 6 times faster than that of the United States. In terms of strengthening military preparedness, China is operating in a wartime posture, while the United States is operating in a peacetime posture. The export ban marked several firsts in the trade war. The first time this sort of restriction was aimed at the United States, and the first time the global trade of Chinese critical minerals was disrupted by U.S. restrictions on advanced technologies. And by banning antimony exports and directly targeting the U.S. market, Beijing is sending a strong message to Washington that it is not afraid to further escalate the trade war by cutting off the United States from critical minerals needed for strategic industries. So, why does all this matter? Listen up. Because America's defense systems are extremely vulnerable right now. But not enough people are talking about the national security crisis that is at our door. A recent report by Govini warns that these restrictions are disrupting the production of thousands of components used by the United States military, particularly in naval systems and nuclear missile technology. The analysis found that more than 20,000 individual parts used by the Pentagon and the U.S. Coast Guard are captured under the ban. The impact, however, will be felt across all branches of the military, the report said. According to the analysis, 6,335 of the affected weapons parts need antimony. 11,351 require gallium, while germanium is used in 12,777 weapons parts. We've got to be honest here. The biggest problem is there's no easy fix for this. China's retaliation was like a punch to the gut, and America's scrambling to figure out how to punch back, or at least stand up straight again. The United States can't just sit around crying over spilled milk. It needs to finally stop leaning on China for these minerals. But no matter what path it chooses, it'll take years before a real solution emerges. There is an antimony mine project in Idaho that is being backed by the Department of Defense. Although that sounds promising, it's still in the planning stages. Think years, not months, before it's pumping out ore. Same goes for gallium and germanium. Starting from scratch takes time, resources, and a whole lot of effort. For now, America must search for new suppliers. The Mineral Security Partnership, which includes The United States, Canada, Australia, and 12 other countries is an association that secures these minerals from places outside China. Canada's stepping up its game with mineral production. Australia's got some decent deposits too. The catch is that to build supply chains like those, you need mining permits, you need shipping deals, you name it. It's not like ordering a takeout. What about recycling? Sure, it would be possible for the United States to sift through old electronics and scrap to pull out some of these minerals. But is there enough? Would it be worth it? Would that change anything? Probably not. The stockpiles America has now is peanuts compared to what it really needs. It's like trying to fill a swimming pool with a water gun. What about other minerals? Can we use other minerals instead? Well, scientists are experimenting with new materials to replace gallium or germanium in military gear, but that's a very long shot too. These minerals are special because they're perfect for the job. Finding something else that works as well is like hunting for a unicorn. The defense industry uses over 700,000 components tied to these minerals. A shortage could also delay everything from fighter jets to missiles. One analyst in the report noted that this ban can cause big disruptions and fatter bills for the defense sector, but if it drags on, it could force the United States to ration these minerals, saving them for tanks, and leaving your next iPhone pricier or simply out of stock. That's the price the United States will have to pay for becoming so dependent on China. It should never have relied so much on one single place for stuff it can't live without. This ban is a neon sign flashing brightly how vulnerable America's supply chains really are. One country pulls the plug, and suddenly the world's biggest military power is sweating bullets, literally. The military's hurting, the economy's taking a hit, and even your gadgets might cost more soon. Despite all the hurdles, no one can say America's not capable to think on their feet. Back in World War II, when rubber supplies got cut off, Americans invented synthetic rubber to keep rolling. They have a solid track record of figuring things out. But, ladies and gentlemen, at the moment, the United States needs to do more to win this trade war or risk facing the consequences. Thanks for sticking with me on this one. It's a
Hello and welcome to BBC News. Let's start with that breaking news. It is an important development in the Ukraine war because President
Zelensky is begging Trump for another meeting. Zelensky is begging, please take all the minerals, please, because Trump cut the aid to Ukraine. Ukraine probably got a couple of minutes left. I don't know. Days. Don't let me exaggerate. Probably about a couple of weeks left. So as soon as Trump cut the military aid, no military aid. Also, no financial support. You know, we're paying the bills for their teachers. We're paying their pensions. We're paying for their cab drivers. We're paying for their police officers. We're paying their whole military bills. Paying for their doctors, their lawyers. We're paying for their society. Trump put an end to that also. Zelensky ran on TV, wrote big letters saying, let's work together. No, it's not. Trump told him working together means you sign for peace today.
Zelensky has said that Ukraine is ready to come to the negotiating table as soon as possible. This is what he posted just a few minutes ago. He says he and his team are ready to work under what he describes as President Trump's strong leadership to get a peace that lasts. He says the first stages to end the war could be the release.
I'm just going to tell you, after Zelensky did all of this, releasing long letters on TV, releasing a video, J.D. Vance came out. Oh, J.D. Vance going to be the next president. J.D. Vance came out and say, enough of the television theatrics. Sign something. J.D. Vance letting them know, don't run to TV and tell everybody you're ready to work with us. You ain't called us, ain't working with us, Zelensky. Once again, Zelensky would ask Trump to play games, though.
Release of prisoners and a truce in the sky and on the sea if Russia does the same. President Zelensky regretted, he said, the way the meeting in the Oval Office went on Friday and that it was time to make things right. And he said Ukraine was ready to sign the minerals and security agreement. Let's go straight to Washington, straight to our correspondent, Tom Bateman. And Tom, well, this is President Zelensky trying to put things right. I assume there hasn't been any sort of reaction there, but significant in terms of the climb down on just about everything.
Well, I think there's some very significant language in that statement, not least mentioning President Trump twice, echoing really some of the talking points that Mr. Trump himself likes to emphasize. I think it's particularly notable that President Zelensky talks about the Javelin anti-tank missiles that President Trump had authorized during his first term for Ukraine. It's something he often talks about. And here you have Mr. Zelensky sort of echoing his gratitude for that as being a sort of key starting point. And saying that he is ready to sign this minerals agreement. Now, he had said over the weekend that he was ready to sign it. And indeed, clearly he was ready to sign it when he came to the White House, because they had organized this mutual or joint signing ceremony that was supposed to happen after a working lunch after that meeting in the Oval Office, after which Mr. Zelensky was rather unceremoniously ejected from the White House. But here you have, I think, both in sort of tone and the specifics of what he is talking about here, an attempt to try to rebuild this after the intense pressure that the White House has been putting on, culminating in the form of President Trump last night deciding that he would cease or pause, in their language, military assistance to Ukraine. So a huge amount of arm twisting of President Zelensky.
No arm twisting. Ain't no arm twisting. We don't own nothing. Trump just said, hey, we done. Europe just had a big meeting over there. All those European leaders came, took pictures together, said how strong they was, what they was going to do. Trump said, good, do it. You're not getting nothing from us no more. Now Zelensky done seen the goddamn light. What? Now you saved? You want to give your life to the Lord, Zelensky? It's too late, brother.
Going on here by the Trump administration, and this feels like the sort of first attempt at a response. The question, as you say, is whether or not it will be enough.
I assume also, and it is an assumption, that everything that the White House has announced about the pause would effectively stay in place until all of this has actually happened.
Well, I think so, because clearly Mr. Trump is trying to use that pause as a way to leverage Mr. Zelensky to do what he wants. I have to say there are sort of two things going on here, and it's hard to know which the administration wants Mr. Zelensky to respond to the most. One is about signing the deal and about basically signing up to a quick ceasefire that Mr. Trump wants, but without security guarantees. Now, Mr. Zelensky references that right at the end of his statement. He says he sees the agreement or the minerals agreement as a...
You just got all the security guarantees from Europe yesterday. 30 European nations gave you all the security guarantees you ever wanted. While you bought, see, this is the hustle. No, I need security. Man, listen, give us what you owe us. We're going to do some business with you. You know, we're going to see what else you got around here, help you refine it. See, it's a scam. Britain just gave you security guarantees. France, too. That's not enough? See, no, it's not.
Path towards these security guarantees. He was saying something a bit similar again on Friday. So it's not a radical change in the message he is giving, but I think the fact he's emphasizing that he will sign this without security guarantees at the moment, but still expects them or hopes for them and needs them in the future. But the other thing is about really the sort of emotive element of this. Remember, Mr. Zelensky was humiliated by the administration in the Oval Office. He was told that he was ungrateful, even though he has said thank you dozens of times to the US.
That's a lie. You know what I'm saying? He had said, as you saying that, J.D. Vance say, man, you ain't said thank you one time to his face. So how are you going to say Zelensky been saying thank you dozens of times when J.D. Vance told him to his face? You ain't told us thank you one time. They won't been meeting with him. He never said thank you. He supposed to open up and thank every time we talk to these people. He didn't, arrogant bastard. Now he want to come and see. It's too late though. They don't want to deal with him. And they ain't going to deal with him. He running on TV talking about he want to work together and all that. Man, Zelensky, you finished.
It's military assistance, and told that he was disrespectful. So that adds another dimension to this. It's a bit harder to see if this will be enough and how he comes back from that. We had really more insults from key members of the administration towards Mr. Zelensky overnight. With Jason Miller, a key advisor to President Trump, referencing what he called Mr. Zelensky's tracksuit, saying that he needs to stop goofing around. This was something he said overnight, saying that behavior needs to stop. Also, Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, talking about Mr. Zelensky in the sense that he said he needs to basically sign this agreement, and expecting him to sort of respect President Trump, say that he loves America. So, you know, that element of things is a bit harder to determine because there was this huge diplomatic breakdown, clearly.
It was embarrassing to say, what? He said he's a sign of the damn deal. That's all you heard? Ridiculous. Yeah, but Zelensky, he said he's seen the light chart. Can you believe that? Trump saying, we can't trust you. You absolutely still got to go.
What is going to be Zelensky's follow-on actions to that? What is going to be the reaction from Moscow? Definitely what's going to be the action from the European Union, from NATO members in Europe. But I think the bigger question is going to be, what is President Trump going to do next? Because I think when you start to take a look at all of the factors that are flowing around here and where the arc of this whole story has been going, you're going to see, and I believe that Trump is on the verge of taking a very bold stance and taking action that will shock a great many people, but may be desperately needed. First of all, let's take a look at what actually happened. So Washington Post reported last night, and it broke a lot of news. I actually got a call from Fox News and went on the Laura Ingraham show right away to talk about some of the ramifications of this. At the time, it was just said, well, here's what some unnamed administration officials have been saying, et cetera. But then we start to find out that no, in fact, it has been frozen. Then the Washington Post this morning comes out and says Ukraine can survive without U.S. military aid for now, but the future is uncertain. And that is one of the big problems. This is a news story, by the way. This is not an opinion piece here, but the Post states as an evident fact that Ukraine can continue on to fight without American aid. This question was actually put to Zelensky on the Brett Baier show, I guess I think it was Friday, after the huge debacle in the Oval Office, and he was asked to speak.
So the question today is, can Ukraine win this war or hold off Russia without continued U.S. support?
It will be difficult for us. That's why I'm here. That's why we speak about the future negotiations. It will be difficult without your support, but we can't lose our values, our people. We can't lose our freedom. So a lot of people, Russians came to our territory, you know it. Russians came to our houses, and everybody saw it, video, images, a lot of things. They killed so many people. Just to forget it, just to say that Putin is a great guy? No, without us.
So here you see, you have President Zelensky just saying, well, what, you just want us to forget our country was invaded, that this guy came in and killed all of our people and blew up our cities, in the form of a rhetorical statement. And of course, his obvious answer is no, we're not going to do that. But the question put to him was, can you keep fighting without U.S. support? He basically sidestepped the question and just kind of said, yeah, we can, because we can't stop. So he says, we just have to keep fighting. The Washington Post seems to echo that this morning. Yes, they can continue fighting, but then the future is uncertain. No, folks, it's not uncertain. And no, they cannot keep fighting without the United States. Zelensky seems to be the only one who doesn't understand that. I think Russian President Vladimir Putin understands it. And I know that Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron from France, they understand it because they have said so. They have said, we can provide a lot of help. We can provide some, peacekeeping troops if we can find a negotiated settlement. But even these so-called security guarantees have to have an American backstop. They have to have the U.S. continued support. And you now have the president of the United States very clearly signaling, that's not where we're going. We're not doing that. That's not what we're interested in. And this is not subtle. This is not something you got to read between the lines to figure out what President Trump is really doing. He is emphatically saying these things as loud as anyone can hear. And so, too, is his vice president. In fact, just this morning, Vice President J.D. Vance was asked some follow-up questions about a lot of this fallout.
He wants the Ukrainians to come to the negotiating table. We want the Ukrainians to have a sovereign and an independent country. We think the Ukrainian troops have fought very bravely, but we're at a point here where neither Europe nor the United States nor the Ukrainians can continue this war indefinitely. So it's important that everybody come to the table, and the president is trying to send a very explicit message. The Ukrainians have got to come to the table and start negotiating with President Trump.
There is no scenario that President Trump is just going to continue the war, that he's just going to follow in any way, shape, or form what the previous administration has done. There's no chance that he's going to follow the lead of what the European leaders have said, but quite a few of them, much more than just UK and France. A lot of them say they want to continue on. They'll for as long as it takes. UK keeps using that phrase. That's apparently not true. They will make money as long as they can. They will sell stuff as long as they can, but they're not going to fight, and they're certainly not going to help fight a war that can't be won. And of course, it's easy for Britain, it's easy for France, it's easy for Poland, a lot of people who want to provide stuff because none of their people are involved, and it's only Ukraine people who die. So they'll go as far as it goes with that. But everything hinges on, can the Ukrainian armed forces continue to survive, because that's what some reason keeps getting short shrift here. Very few people that talk about this with enthusiasm on the Western side seem to go back and understand the consequences and the cost levied on the Ukrainian men. That's what gets ignored in all of this. They want to stay up here in the ethereal and the conceptual, and like Zelensky does, he's doing the same thing. We have our freedom here. We were invaded. This idea, this concept, we were the victims here. So we have to keep. It doesn't matter what you want to do. It matters what you can do and what you can't do. And what you can't do is just pretend like your men don't matter, or that they're robots without psychology, without heart, without emotions, without fears, without all those things, and as though that they aren't subject to the vagaries of war. And if let's just look at that for a second. Brett Baer specifically asked him, can you fight without the Americans? Now the support has actually been paused. They hadn't stopped it yet. They're using that word pause, I think, for a very good reason, which you saw Vice President Vance say right there, was in order to bring it back to the negotiating table so that we can talk. That's where because he wants to end the war. He doesn't want to do what the Europeans do, which is, we'll just keep supplying you stuff and selling you stuff for as long as it takes to the last Ukrainian, etc. Trump says, no, I want to end the killing. He's the only guy talking about the Ukrainian people. And that's shameful for the majority of the West. It's shameful for those in the United States that are opposing the president and saying, no, you should just keep on supporting this, oblivious to the cost in blood and treasure, permanent loss to the Ukrainian people, something that'll never get back. But the president seems to be very sharply focused on that. But if you want to know some of the impact that this could have on the Ukrainian armed forces, consider what happened in Afghanistan. Now, that war had been going on for 20 years, and if the president, whoever it is, whoever was in office, if they just had continued the same thing before, we would still be there right now. It would be on a low burn, something we could handle. We had some number of troops, and we just keep on this, whatever, $4 to $5 billion per year, and just kind of kept it on low on the stove, on the back burner, and it could have just continued on. It would still be going on to this day. But it wouldn't have been accomplished anything, and the Afghan people would still be dying. Well, when that finally came to an end, and all the fiction of the previous years that they were, the Afghan National Security Forces were improving, they were taking the lead, they were having the confidence of their people and all the stuff, which was never true. It was never true. So when finally we said, okay, now it actually is over. We had the 2020 Doha Accords that President Trump signed, and then it was executed late by the Biden administration in 2021. That set the stage for the dissolution. Once the the Afghanistan armed forces recognized that all of this backstop that they had and this U.S. over their shoulders and the psychological support that they had from the U.S., once that left, they didn't just keep fighting on. They started making deals with the Taliban, and then they just surrendered, and then they just gave up. And if you think the Ukrainian armed forces are not subject to that same psychological pressure, then you don't know anything about the pressures of war. Just imagine, you've been fighting this war since 2014 with the American backing in one form or another, in 2022 with the express support, in large scale. And now all of a sudden it's coming to an end. You see the Russians are continuing to advance. You see the Russian industrial capacity continuing to enlarge. You see the number of Russian troops continue to grow. And now all of a sudden you don't even have the support of the United States. And so now that most of the soldiers do, that the best that the Europeans can do is to give a small percentage of what would be necessary to have a shot at holding the lines. They haven't held the line since November of 2023. Do you understand that? Since November of 2023, Russia started on a slow grinding advance that continues to this day. So they have not stopped them with everything. You may remember that infamous $61 billion that the U.S. gave in early 2024. That they had been trying. They said this would make a difference. It literally made no difference at all. European Union keeps saying all these packages has hit. It has no impact on the battlefield. They introduced Storm Shadow missiles. They introduced ATACMS long-range missiles. They introduced F-16. None of it made any difference. Russia continued to advance. Now, just imagine those soldiers who see with all of that stuff they did get, now all of a sudden it's going to be limited to only what the Europeans can have, and they know that that's a fraction of what they need. Do you think that they're just going to continue to say, we'll still fight every day and continue to be slowly ground until we're dead? There's some estimates are, I think the General Budana from Ukraine has said that they could probably last 6 months without support. That implies that they would fight literally to the last man, and then all of a sudden there wouldn't be an army. But that's not how reality works. How it actually works is that at some point before that, before it gets down to a critical mass, the rest of them are going to say, I've seen everyone die here, and the war is already lost. Now the Americans aren't here. I mean, it's self-preservation that at some point these guys are going to say, screw this. I'm not going to literally commit suicide so that the loss is here instead of the loss is here. And it is going to be here. That is going to happen. So if this loss is coming, and it's going to be here, meaning that Russia will have whatever it chooses to fight for on the battlefield, whether you're dead or whether you're alive, it's going to go there. Then there will come a point, there will almost certainly come a point to where either enough troops have been killed to where they can't hold the continuity of the line and it breaks just by sheer size, or because they finally say, I've had enough. And then they just bolt and they leave and they abandon the battlefield. That's also one of those two things is going to happen. It's a virtual certainty. One of those two things will happen. And so for the Post to think, yes, well, they can go on for some time, ignores all of the human components in a war. It's not just about how many men you have, not just about how many machines, how much money you give, how much ammunition. Those are all elements of it. But at the core, it's about men. And all of the people seem to be ignoring the men except President Trump. So he's focused on that. So now then, continuing on with what Vice President Vance said there, he said, listen, what we're looking to do right now is get back to the table. Whatever is said in public is one thing, but they're still sharply focused on what's said behind the scenes.
I think the most important thing, a lot of people have made this about public statements. President Zelensky needs to say that he's committed to the peace, or President Zelensky needs to apologize to the president. The public stuff doesn't matter nearly as much as what are the Ukrainians doing to meaningfully engage on what a peaceful settlement would look like. We need the Ukrainians privately to come to us and say, this is what we need, this is what we want, this is how we're going to participate in the process to end this conflict. That is the most important thing, and that lack of private engagement is what is most concerning to us.
See, and that should be concerning to everyone. If you're for Ukraine, if you hate Russia, this should alarm you, because this is one of the things I've been harping on that unfortunately the Washington Post doesn't harp on, that at least Vice President Vance is trying to elevate, is that the Ukraine side with Zelensky doesn't have a plan. And now he has some things, which I'm going to show you in a second, but they are so far detached from reality that they're not serious at all. There's no substance to it. What they don't do is they don't have what I've said before. They don't bring the spreadsheets that are, here are the logistical capacities. Here are the number of troops we have. Here's our capacity. Here's the same categories on the Russian side. And what we want to do is X, Y, and Z based on these factors. And we think we can succeed based on this. And here's the objective we want. That should be elementary. That's second lieutenant stuff, just in the tactical situation. And you just apply that same mentality and that same thought process to the strategic side. You can't do strategy without doing exactly what I just told you. And yet the Ukraine side isn't. Or he's just detached from reality, which we'll get to in a second. But if anyone is confused on where President Trump stands on this is what he said on Friday after the big debacle.
I'm looking for peace. We're not looking to go into a 10-year war and play games. We want peace. And it was just my impression that if we do that, if we sign up, he's looking for something that I'm not looking for. He's looking to go on and fight. We're looking to end the death.
So Trump is emphatically telling anyone who will listen, and apparently that's behind the scenes just as much as it is in front of the camera. He doesn't want to fight a war. He recognizes the war can't be won. So he doesn't want any more Ukraine people to die for nothing. So he's telling Zelensky, he's telling Putin, he's telling Keir Starmer, he's telling Macron, he's telling everybody, all the American people, we're not going to support something that can't succeed. And then after he made that statement, you might think, okay, after the disaster, the humiliation, and the public spectacle that was Friday afternoon in the Oval Office, and then Trump's emphatic comments there, that maybe Zelensky would start to moderate his talk a little bit. But instead, last night, he says, actually, you know what? We're going to fight for a long time. Trump just tells you, I'm not interested in a long fight. And in response, he says, no, we're going to fight for a long, long time, to which President Trump last night said,
President Zelensky supposedly made a statement today in AP. I'm not a big fan of AP, so maybe it was an incorrect statement, but he said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time. And he better not be right about that. That's all I'm saying.
Gary, I forgot to ask you this, but Trump issued a Truth Social last night. If you can find that and throw it up there, because that's he referenced that statement there. Trump made some pretty strong statements that he's not going to support that. And he said if that's actually what happened, they may find out they're just on their own. And of course, it wasn't long after that the Washington Post and I think Business Insider and Bloomberg maybe was reporting that the supplies had been stopped. So all the stuff that had already been in the pipeline was apparently paused. So even that part's not going to be going forward. I think what President Trump is trying to do is to show Zelensky that, hey, by the way, if you think you can keep fighting without our stuff, but even what you thought was coming isn't. Yeah, this is what he said. Thanks, Gary. He said, this is the worst statement that could have been made by Zelensky, and America will not put up with it much longer. It is what I was saying. This guy doesn't want there to be peace as long as he has America's backing. Europe, in the meeting they had with Zelensky, stated flatly that they cannot do the job without the U.S. Probably not a great statement to have been made in terms of showing strength against Russia. What are they thinking? So you see that Trump is not playing games with this, and now he's showing with actions, this is what we're going to do. Now, again, if we're talking about someone rational, if you're talking about someone who's on the Ukraine leadership side, who is on the inferior side of this in the balance of power, You can have all the desires you want. You can be angry. You can think this is unjust, all you want. But in war, it matters about the balance of power. So you would think that even if he had to grit his teeth, that Zelensky would say, okay, well, I have to acknowledge these realities. But instead, last night, he publishes this tweet. And I want to highlight this because it's really important. Gary, if you can toss that up there. Zelensky remains detached from reality. And even though I said this is what he ought to do, he's not doing it. And instead, he's doing stuff like this. He writes that the absence of security guarantees for Ukraine 11 years ago allowed Russia to start with the occupation of Crimea and the war in the Donbass. Later, in the absence of security guarantees, allows Russia to launch a full-scale invasion. And now, due to a lack of clear security guarantees, Russia continues to fuel this war. The world sees this, and the world acknowledges this. No, I'll tell you what, the world doesn't see that. They see something very different, or at least those who are willing to look at the reality don't. Because every single thing you talk there didn't happen because of the absence of security guarantees. It happened because of the lack and the unwillingness of Zelensky to take offered diplomatic off-ramps that would have either prevented the war or that would have stopped the war where it was and preserved the lives of his people. And just imagine if what he said was accurate, there's this absence of security guarantees. So he wanted, if we had security guarantees, there would have been World War III already. Trump is emphatic that there is not going to be World War III on his charge, and certainly not on a case like this. He's not going to play there. And he's showing with actions he means what he says. But let me tell you another history lesson here, another thing. Let's don't stop just about 2022 or even the Crimea issue. Let's go back to 2015 and the Minsk agreements. Had Zelensky or his predecessor simply adopted and applied the Minsk agreements that they agreed to, which was to change their constitution to give limited autonomy and protection to the Russian population in the east of the country, the civil war would have ended. The militaries would have withdrawn from their forces, and there would never have been a war in 2022. It would have ended in 2015 or 2016. Zelensky, when he was elected in 2019, had a chance to implement it, and when his predecessors didn't, and he refused to do it. He ran on a peace platform, promising to end the war. When he had the chance, he didn't do it. Strike number one. 2021, he had the deal that was offered by Putin. It wasn't as good as the Minsk deal, but it was a whole lot better than anything else because it would have only included autonomy, really the same thing as the Minsk agreements for Luhansk and Donetsk, 2 provinces. He refused to do that. Then, as a result of that, then Putin recognized the independence of Luhansk and Donetsk. And that set the stage for then what was going to be the war, which actually started 2 days later. Because Ukraine wouldn't agree to the terms they had already agreed to, and because Russia said, you're bringing NATO right onto our border, right at the heart of, in planes that would focus right towards Moscow, and we will not tolerate that. We'll use military force. Zelensky knew it. He chose to ignore it, and then the war ended up coming. 2 months later, Istanbul, 2022, you know it well, he refused to take that diplomatic offerings. 2023, despite sober military analysis saying that you don't have the balance of power to try and drive Russia out of your territory. He ignored that, tried to drive them to the Azov Sea, and broke his teeth on the first one. By any rational thought, then you say, okay, we have to make the best deal we could get now because the Russia's only going to get stronger. We're going to get weaker. It doesn't make any sense to keep fighting. He ignored that and kept fighting. Beginning in, I think it was November of 2023, Russia started an offensive. And they continued on. And then by June of 2024, Putin gave another offer for a peace deal, what we keep referring to as the June 14 lines. And those were now not 2 provinces, now it's 4 provinces. And now that it's not just that you can't have NATO, now it's also you have to have a reduced armed forces down to 85,000, I think is the number being kicked around here from the Russian side. So the terms keep getting worse. Now, a rational person would have said, okay, it's as bad as it's been. It keeps getting worse. Holy cow, I better stop now or there won't be a country left. He doesn't. He ignores that. He continues fighting. He continues losing. A rational person would look at the military balance and say, I haven't stopped the Russian in 12 full months. It's time to do something different. Instead, he continues on with the fiction that we're going to keep fighting for our freedom. And his people keep dying every single day. They lose territory. every single day. All of these things are gone. And now here we are in February, now March of 2025. President Trump has put on the table an offer to end the war. And it's now, the terms that is now going to be available are worse than they were last June, but still better than they will be if Zelensky continues fighting and they suffer an outright military defeat. That's where we are right now. Trump is now going to be faced with the prospect of either going back on his word and to prevent Zelensky from falling quickly, to unpause the supplies and keep it going, and encouraging Ukraine to do the same. But all that's going to do is perpetuate the war, which Trump said he's not interested in doing. It's going to continue the killing of the Ukrainian people, which Trump said he's not interested in seeing. So then he's going to be faced with the difficulty of saying, I gave you every chance in the world. I gave you the opportunities. I practically begged you to take this deal here, this minerals deal, which in some quarters was panned as something that is exploiting the territory of Ukraine, and certainly the U.S. would benefit from it. There's no question about that. But it also would tie U.S. into Ukraine's future and would provide, if not a security guarantee, it would certainly provide a deterrent from Russia to take any action, especially if they agreed to that ahead of time. Zelensky won't take that either because, and here's the reason I think, he knows that will lead to an end of war negotiation. And if that war ends now, then he has to face elections. And by all accounts, he would almost certainly lose. I would say he would definitely lose, because how can you run on a platform that's saying, I've been in charge of this war for it'd be a little over 3 years, and everything I tried to do militarily and diplomatically was catastrophic failure. All these promises I kept telling you, we're going to get back to the 1991 borders. We're going to drive Russia to the Azov Sea. We're going to stop their offensive. None of it proved true. And now somewhere north of 1 million of his people are dead and huge swaths of territory are gone. Who's going to vote for that guy? So Zelensky knows that, and he's not going to. So then we get back to Trump. What's he going to do next? What I hope that he does, and what I would certainly recommend, is that he says, I gave you guys every chance in the world. You didn't want to take it. You now own it. If you want to keep fighting with Europe, then good on you. I think it'd be a terrible idea. I wouldn't do it, but I'm not going to stop you from doing so. But you will do it without American weapons. You will do it without American intelligence. You will do it without American special forces doing anything. No training, no nothing. We're withdrawing all of it, and you will now be left to your own demise. You will be responsible solely for what happens next, President Zelensky. That's what I would do, because that's the only thing that has a chance to end this. If Trump continues on and says, all right, fine, we'll unpause it, we'll keep going, that's going to achieve the opposite. Russia will still win. It won't change the outcome. It just will increase the price. But if the United States withdraws, and like if the Ukraine army collapses, or if they just quit fighting and then the war comes to a rapid end, then the killing is much smaller and it stops. So I think that's probably the best thing that the president can do right now, and the best thing for the Ukrainian people. And I suspect that there is a lot of Ukrainian people that are hoping just that. I know for sure, because I've talked to some in recent days, that a lot of them were very hopeful, especially before last Friday, that there would be a deal reached, that Trump would be able to end the war and their killing stopped. And I can only imagine the angst of those now, knowing the prospect of their leader not taking any of the diplomatic off-roads and instead saying he wants to see more warfare continue on, and they know it can't work. That's kind of the deal we have today. And I'd like to bring Gary back in, because he's always got some great ideas here. And our fans are really starting to want more of Gary too. So we're reading your comments, and we're giving you what you want here. So Gary, welcome back on this side of the camera. Always enjoy having you on here. And I just want to ask you a thought here. When you see Vance talking about, how emphatic he's trying to do this, you saw because you played them, the Trump soundbite about how he wants to end, and then you keep seeing the stuff by Zelensky. What can be going through his head?
Well, Danny, that's kind of what I was going to throw that question to you. You just, the picture that you just painted over years, that is before anybody that is willing to look at it. The only thing I can assess is that Zelensky is drunk on the adulation that he gets from overseas, from the European Union. You and I have played the clips of him walking into standing ovations for minutes, or a long time. Yeah. And who would not be affected by that? My gosh! And it's repeated. These aren't one-time off happenings. We see it over and over again. Right after his slap down in the White House, what happened? He went over to 10 Downing Street, and we got the warm embrace from Starmer.
All the applause he gets, yeah.
Listen, we all know. Listen, when you get that kind of acceptance and again adulation, how can it not seep into your consciousness and how you're going to react? And that's the only thing I think that explains this.
And okay, I get that from Zelensky's perspective. I mean, I get it. You just got humiliated in Washington, and you go to UK. But why? Help me understand this, because I genuinely don't get this. Why would UK not only bring him to 10 Downing to all the cameras and stuff, but then set up a meeting with the king himself? What does UK benefit from that? I don't get it.
Well, I tell you, he's going on. To my eyes, Starmer is going on such a limb, and proclaiming all this protection that he wants to provide, money and everything, boots on the ground. And part of me, we're going to need your help to do this, America. Would you step in for us and back us up? Because we'd like to do all these wonderful things. It's like he wants to throw a party for Zelensky, but where's the beer? Where's the girls? And there's nothing there. So he can make all these promises, but my gosh, they're empty promises, Danny, right?
I mean, I think they are. I don't. It's like saying, listen, I want to buy a house in the Potomac area in Washington D.C. I know they run for about $2.4 million, and I only have about 60,000, but I really like it. So when can I move in? And the realtor actually entertaining you. That's the part I don't get, because this is not working in my brain. And I don't know. I'm hoping you can figure something out.
I have none of it figured out, Danny. That's why we're here, trying to figure this out together. And everybody out there in the audience, we're all trying to figure this out. Here's the other thing that strikes me, Danny, is that when Zelensky looks at that mineral deal and the protections that it's provide, he didn't see the protection and the security, the very security that he wanted, was provided in that deal. If we've got Americans, whatever, miners, businessmen over there working the land, what better security is he ever going to think he's going to get? Because NATO peacekeepers are not going to be allowed in there. Lavrov, Putin made that clear. Here he's got that guarantee that he wanted, and he didn't see it that way. That amazes me.
Yeah, I don't understand there. I want to go to our audience here. Popeye here says the sad and crazy thing is that those that are still supporting the war will raise Zelensky up as some martyr. Some people just don't get it. This is about ending the war. And
yes,
do you see that a lot? That like they almost seem like there's something noble about him and putting him up on a pedestal, but they seem oblivious to the cost of it to their people.
Danny, everybody loves an underdog, right? They just want to keep cheering on the underdog. He can do it. He can do it. Oh, just don't stop now. You're at the 10-yard line. You're so close. Don't stop. People in power are saying that, not only people in the media, but he's surrounded by that. That's what I'm saying. I think he's believing all of that what he's hearing from the side he wants to hear, like his better angel, or what he thinks is his better angel, telling him, press on, we've got liberty and what he calls democracy. Come on, what a joke. The democracy, we're going to provide it for our people. That's why I'm here. That's why I won't stop. We just saw it in the clip that we played. He says, we can't lose. And listen, he says, he goes, yeah, if America leaves us alone, well, oh boy, it's going to be tough. And it's going to be tough.
But we're going to keep doing it.
Right. He says, because we can't lose. Well, knock, knock. Kind of already lost, Buster.
I'm already doing it. Yeah. Here's an interesting thought here. It says what Starmer really did was put the blame of the loss in the Ukraine squarely onto Trump. What do you think about that? Because I know a lot of people are saying things like that. Like the reason why the Europeans are doing this is because they want Trump to be blamed. Do you think there's anything to that?
Oh, very much so. Listen, anything that can put him down, Trump, put him in his place, knock that loudmouth down, shut him up. What is he? He's just some, former TV star, and he happens to be president for the second time. Let's
wait a minute. Isn't that the deal for Zelensky? He's the TV star too. I mean, which one, man? Yeah, they got to be careful with those analogies.
And listen, we know, the Trump derangement syndrome. At any cost, get this guy off the stage, get him out of office. He's an embarrassment to America.
Yeah, and so here's another view. Then
President Zelensky's hostility to peace, and I want to explore your analysis in there. But before we do, I want to ask you a few questions about Netanyahu, who on Sunday evening announced that he was cutting off water, food, and medical supplies to Gaza, and then received a phone call from Steve Witkoff saying back off, and then earlier today announced he's cutting off electricity. What does he think he's accomplishing here?
Just before I answer, if I can make one personal remark, I just came back from Hofstra University in Long Island, where I was hosted by a very legendary professor, Martin Melkonian, on the faculty there since 1966. He's such a fan of judging freedom that after my long lecture, they made sure to announce that I'll be appearing on Judge Freedom today. So I wanted to thank him.
So nice to hear. I have a soft spot for Hofstra. The dean of the law school is a longtime friend of mine. She hired me to teach constitutional law, and then COVID came along, and I was banished to the hills of New Jersey, and there was no way we were going to make it work. So I love the place. I do not know this professor, but Professor, thank you for watching. Thank you for hosting Aaron. He's a great man. And tell your students to watch.
Well, so to your question, what does Netanyahu think he's doing? He's trying to pursue his agenda of ethnically cleansing Gaza, making it unlivable. I believe Israel claimed that their blockade did not apply to water. So yes, we're going to block medical supplies, we're going to block critical aid, we're going to block food, but we're going to exempt water. But as you said, they're also cutting the power, or what's left of the power. And when you cut power, you're effectively blocking water, because power fuels water desalinization, for example, and which is very critical there in that region. So they're effectively cutting off water as well. And of course, as you pointed out repeatedly on your show with your guest, this is a war crime, intentionally denying aid to a civilian population. And Israel has such a green light from the U.S., from Biden, and now with Trump, that they feel entitled to announce this to the world, that they're cutting off aid. They're committing a massive war crime against a besieged civilian population after leaving their territory in ruins. So what is his goal? It's just to remind the Palestinians that he is their ruler. He wants them to leave, and he's going to make their life as miserable as possible.
I regard you and Max as our go-to people on Israel because of the friends that you both have there and the contacts that you have. Ritter, of course, knows a lot about Israel. He claims that Witkoff is twisting Netanyahu's arm and dialing him back. I don't really see any evidence of that. Do you?
I don't either. The day before Netanyahu announced his new siege, Marco Rubio rushed an extra $4 billion worth of military support to Israel, bypassing Congress. And I took Netanyahu's announcement of cutting off aid as his recognition that he has a green light to do whatever he wants.
This was going to be my next question. Yeah. Rubio committed the same act of perjury, I'll call it what it is, that Tony Blinken did when, as Secretary of State Blinken did what Secretary Rubio did yesterday. Swear under oath in writing to the Congress that this is an emergency, and therefore Congress needs to be bypassed, an unconstitutional, unlawful act. What is the emergency that Israel needs $4 billion worth of supplies, which he knows that the Congress would authorize anyway?
The only emergency is the control that people like the Adelsons and AIPAC have over U.S. politics. Trump has bragged about basically being bought off by the Adelsons, giving them recognition of Israel's theft at the Golan Heights and moving the embassy to Jerusalem. That's the actual emergency here, an emergency of democracy where you have oligarchs controlling our politics, and Israel also serving hegemonic ends, and so therefore having a pass to do whatever it wants. In fairness to Scott Ritter and to Steve Witkoff, you know, as Scott's pointed out, and this is accurate, Witkoff did force Netanyahu to accept the first ceasefire.
Yes, Scott is correct on that.
Yeah.
And Witkoff did.
He did
what Trump boasted about. This happened before Trump was even in the White House.
Yeah, and we don't know yet, or at least I don't know yet, what Witkoff is going to do. He's going to the region, I believe, today or sometime this week. So we'll see. I hope to be wrong, that actually they're going to continue to be using their leverage to stop Israel, to restrain it. But the record is not very optimistic, especially in light of all the statements that Trump has made about endorsing the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. But I would love to be proven wrong. What Netanyahu wants is to prevent the next phase of the ceasefire, which we're not supposed to technically be in right now. But he wants to avoid that because that phase involves Israel actually militarily pulling out of Gaza. He doesn't want that because he wants to be able to continue occupying and destroying Gaza, in part because there's still Palestinians there, including Hamas, who he has failed to destroy.
So educate me on the resistance. The Arab League, or whoever is meeting today, is prepared to announce some modernization of Gaza, not the Gaza Trump Riviera, but some other sort of modernization, which will include the sovereignty and natural human rights of the Palestinian people. There is also, according to McGregor and Pepe Escobar, a very serious resistance to Israel emanating from the military in Egypt and in Turkey, both of which are under pressure from their populations to do something to rein in Netanyahu. Do you agree with these sort of two polar poles of resistance?
Well, I just don't know. Even if they did everything absolutely right, everything strategically sound and wise, I just don't think it really matters. What matters is the decisive U.S. support that Israel has to carry out mass murder. We just saw it in action. What Israel's done over the last year plus, committing one of the worst crimes in human history. They could only do that because the U.S. had their back. And of course, the Arab states could have stood up more and done more. But ultimately, even if they had ejected more fulsomely, it still wouldn't matter. And so these Arab leaders will want to put forward a plan because they want to counter Trump's plan of ethnic cleansing. But as long as Israel maintains its self-professed right to put Gaza under siege, deny Palestinians the right to self-determination, then we're going to just have this crisis continue in different phases. And as I've talked about a lot, and it's important, I think, to point out, the Arab states plus Iran have all endorsed a plan that is a major Palestinian compromise in which Palestinians would accept as 22% of their homeland and Israel withdraws from the West Bank and Gaza and allows for a Palestinian state there. It's only the U.S. and Israel that have stood in the way.
Israel just murdered the leader of Hamas in the West Bank. Haaretz reported it about 10 minutes before we started this show. Before we jump over to Zelensky and Trump and the incident in the Oval Office and the fallout, I don't know if you watch the Oscars. I don't, because I go to bed early. But there was a very, very moving event at the Oscars involving a documentary that won Best Documentary. This clip is only about 1 minute and 10 seconds long. I'd like your thoughts on it. Chris?
The Oscar goes to No Other Land.
Thank you to the Academy for the award. It's such a big honor for the four of us and everybody supported us for this documentary. About 2 months ago, I became a father, and my hope to my daughter that she will not have to live the same life I'm living now, always fearing settlers' violence, home demolitions, and forest spill displacements that my community, Masafriyatta, is living and facing every day under the Israeli occupation. No other land reflect the harsh reality that we have been enduring for decades and still resist, as we call on the world to take serious actions to stop the injustice and to stop the ethnic cleansing of Palestinian people.
We made this film, Palestinians and Israelis, because together our voices are stronger. We see each other. The atrocious destruction of Gaza and its people, which must end. The Israeli hostages brutally taken in the crime of October 7th, which must be freed. When I look at Bassel, I see my brother, but we are unequal. We live in a regime where I am free under civilian law, and Bassel is under military laws that destroy his life and he cannot control. There is a different path a political solution without ethnic supremacy, with national rights for both of our people. And I have to say, as I am here, the foreign policy in this country is helping to block this path. And, you know, why? Can't you see that we are intertwined? That my people can be truly safe if Basel's people are truly free and safe. There is another way. It's not too late for life, for the living. There is no other way. Thank you.
Very touching, very moving. I don't know if you know these people. I never heard of them. I never heard of the film. Chris and Sonia brought it to my attention, what they said on Sunday night. Very, very moving. Who knows where it will go? Any thoughts?
Well, Judge, you know, one of the reasons why people haven't heard of this film, at least on a large scale, is because prior to the Oscars, it couldn't even find distribution. Not a single film a distributor in the U.S. would take it on to put it out to the public. So it was relatively niche. I haven't seen it. I really wanted to, but just because of work commitments, I haven't been able to see a film in, I don't know, 2 years. But I once I'm finished my book, this will be at the top of my list. And you know, it's not even about Gaza. It's about the West Bank. It's about Israel's apartheid in the West Bank, which makes Palestinian life very, very difficult, having to deal with your home being stolen, vandalized, attacked, your water being deprived, so it goes to these lush Jewish settlements next door. This is a powerful film, from what I understand, exposing that. So very moving to see it recognized at this level, especially in Hollywood, which is notoriously really hostile to voices that recognize Palestinian humanity. And the reaction to this Oscar film from our corporate media, which is very hostile to Palestinian humanity, was really interesting. For example, one headline in Politico said, "Controversial documentary film wins Oscar." Why is it controversial? You know why? It's because it recognizes Palestinians as equal human beings. And in our society, unfortunately, that makes you controversial and prevents your Academy Award-winning film from even finding a distributor. And I'm sure that will change now that it's won the Oscar.
Right. Switching gears, why is President Zelensky hostile to a ceasefire?
He's hostile to a ceasefire because he staked his political career on bowing to the Ukrainian ultranationalists who don't want to recognize any agreement that takes into account the rights of ethnic Russian Ukrainians in the Donbass and Russia's concerns. They want to be fully in the pocket of the West. And Zelensky has bowed to them. So in the process, he triggered that awful confrontation at the White House. Like the dominant media narrative is that Trump and JD Vance ambushed Zelensky and were rude to him. And certainly, I don't think they were completely scot-free. I mean, JD Vance, admonishing Zelensky to thank President Trump when Zelensky's been thankful plenty of times. And also, should Zelensky really be thankful to the U.S. when the U.S. has used his country for its goal of bleeding Russia and let Ukraine be destroyed in the process? So I thought that was inappropriate by Vance. But overall, it was Zelensky that caused this meltdown. For 40 minutes, they held court. It was very cordial. Trump even said, we're going to continue to arm Ukraine. He made that commitment during his conversation with Zelensky. Zelensky called Putin a killer, a terrorist. Trump didn't react to that. What finally caused this meltdown was when JD Vance said that, the key to prosperity is engaging in diplomacy. And that's when Zelensky, after a nice 40-minute polite exchange, decided to challenge him and say, what kind of diplomacy are you talking about? And then, as I showed in my article, Zelensky lied. He lied. He claimed that, he was trying to argue to Vance and Trump that you can't trust Putin, you can't engage in diplomacy with him. And his example of that was the fact that Putin and Zelensky signed an agreement in Paris in December 2019. And then he said we were supposed to exchange prisoners, but Putin didn't do that. Well, later on that month, there are photographs of Zelensky attending a welcome home ceremony for Ukrainian prisoners freed under that agreement with Putin. And the following year, in April 2020, there was another round of prisoner exchanges. So that was a lie from Zelensky. And then he omitted, of course, his long record of ignoring the Minsk Accords, which was the pact that Ukraine reached before he became president, but which he signed on to when he became president, to end the war in the Donbass. And it was Zelensky's government that refused to implement the Minsk Accords. And the tragedy here is that, people think Trump sold Zelensky out by kicking him out of the White House and pausing weapons. It's Washington that has sold Zelensky out because he was elected on a peace mandate back in 2019. And rather than support him, our uniparty sided with Ukraine's far-right neo-Nazis. And that's why we're in the mess we're in today.
Do you think that Zelensky regrets listening to Boris Johnson after the Istanbul negotiations produced a lengthy, detailed, and amicable agreement?
Depends how cynical he is. If he's so cynical,
he's cynical.
if he's so cynical that he's willing to destroy his country for his own personal benefit, and I have no doubt that he will be rewarded for his services for letting his country be destroyed. So if he does, if he's going to take a fancy exile somewhere and live out the rest of his life in luxury, which I think is his most likely path, then I don't think he'll regret it. But if he had a conscience, of course he'd regret walking away from a peace deal that his own team signed and following the orders from Joe Biden and Boris Johnson, because it's been an absolute disaster. And now whatever peace deal Ukraine is left with now, it will be far worse than what they could have gotten in Istanbul when Zelensky walked away.
Didn't you think that Prime Minister Starmer looked ridiculous on Sunday, saying we're going to put boots on the ground and planes in the air? We're going to make a loan and we're going to have it paid back by seizing interest on assets, Russian assets that are frozen. I mean, where does he? And we're going to order missiles to be built at our plants in Belfast, missiles that wouldn't be ready until 2030. I mean, where is he going with all this?
It's really pathetic. And there's something, the British elite have some, unique hatred of Russia, which I don't fully understand. People more familiar with UK politics will be able to explain it better than I. But yeah, they're obsessed with destroying Russia. They have been for a long time, and they're trying to save face by making all these pledges that they're not going to fulfill. They're not going to send troops. The only way they will is if they get what they're not going to get, which is a U.S., what they're calling now a backstop, which is a fancy way of basically the U.S. guaranteeing the security of British and French troops in Ukraine, which is what they're desperate for, because they know if they ever get into a fight with Russia inside Ukraine, they have no chance unless they have the backup from the U.S. But Trump is clearly not interested in that. He doesn't want to offer the so-called backstop. He wants to disengage from all this. And part of this, just from the point of view of Britain, is blowback from their efforts to undermine him by taking part in Russiagate. Christopher Steele, the former British spy, he comes from the British spy services and British intelligence officials in the summer of 2016, and we still don't know the full story. Maybe now under the Trump administration, part 2, we'll find out more. They were involved in passing on claims and information to the Obama administration that was a part of the effort of framing Trump as a Russian agent. So they're getting their blowback now as well, as is Ukraine, because as I believe I've talked to you about before, there's someone in Zelensky's advisory team who openly took part in the campaign to stop Trump in 2016, who put out information about Paul Manafort that likely wasn't true, but that led to Manafort's resignation. And they said at the time that we're helping Hillary Clinton because we don't want Trump to win, because we think Trump would be bad for Ukraine, namely the Ukraine's fight against Eastern Ukrainian rebels backed by Russia. Well, now they're getting Trump back in office for a second time. I don't think he's forgotten that, and they're facing the consequences.
Last subject matter, the chancellor in waiting of Germany, Friedrich Merz, is pro-war. What is he going to do once he gets in? Do you have any idea?
What can he do? Germany's taking part in self-sabotage. They stood by as Joe Biden promised to destroy the Nord Stream pipeline if he wanted to, and then made good on his pledge, according to all the available, or at least all the most convincing evidence, as unearthed by Cy Hirsch and other sources. And so what leverage do they have now? They have been severely weakened by this, and for some reason their political elites, from the incoming chancellor to the Green Party, they all seem insistent on doubling down on this proxy war strategy, which has led to their deindustrialization and their severe weakening. So I don't understand what, as Trump said, Zelensky, what cards do you have? And I don't see Germany being in any different position than everybody else in that proxy war coalition.
Aaron, thank you very much for joining us, my dear friend. Give my
Nixon here, and bad news for the Zelensky supporters. It looks like the Trump administration, the U.S. empire, has had just about enough disrespect from their pet monkey. Let's talk. And get home, I looked at my phone. I'm like, oh, I saw that coming. U.S. President Donald Trump has instructed the Defense Department to pause all military aid to Ukraine following his public spat with Vladimir Zelensky, Bloomberg reported on Monday, citing a senior Pentagon official. According to the news agency, the freeze affects the equipment already designated for delivery, including weapons in transit, on aircraft and ships, or waiting in transit areas in Poland. So the old pet monkey has stepped on the foot of the organ grinder one time too many. And, you know, here's the deal. This is kind of, who didn't see this coming? You know, here, I mean, let's be honest. And I've said this. I got no respect for Keir Starmer whatsoever. None whatsoever. But if I were to get invited to number 10 Downing Street, Garland Nixon, come to number 10 Downing Street, Keir Starmer wants to talk to you. That's that man's house. That's his home. That's his seat of power. Number one, I'd wear a suit and tie. Let's just start there. Keir Starmer, a guy who I think nothing of, but you got to respect the tradition. You got to respect the protocols of power, right? I wear a suit and tie. You don't come in there with a monkey suit on. Although I guess if you're the organ grinder's monkey, it is the appropriate symbolic gear. Number one. Number two, I wouldn't disrespect Keir Starmer. No matter how much I dislike him, that's his house. He is the grand poobah. I would respect the protocol. I would refer to him as prime minister. I disagree with you, Prime Minister. I wouldn't talk to him in an unfair way. If he raised his voice a little bit, I'd probably be quiet. I would understand this is the protocol. I wouldn't come to your house. Yeah, man, woman, whatever. If I come to your house, Garland stopped by, and let's say we had a little bit of a disagreement, I'd say, thank you kindly, and I would excuse myself. I ain't coming to your house and disrespect you. And he comes to the house of the president. I don't care if you don't like Trump. He's a president. I didn't like most presidents. They're the president. If I came to the White House, I'd put on a suit and tie. I'd wear a suit. I'd say, yes, Mr. President. Thank you for inviting me, Mr. President. If he said, what do you think about this? I'd give him my position in a respectful manner. If he said, well, I think you're wrong, I'd say, well, I understand how you feel, Mr. President. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. I would respect the protocols of the office. Forget who's in it. I could hate the guy. This ape, knuckle dragon ape, comes to the White House. There's the word, decorum. Decorum. That's all, decorum. I understand. I've often said when people say, what do you think about the U.S. government? I say it's a crime syndicate. Always has been. Goes around the world overthrowing governments, installing evil dictators, lying and propagandizing the American people, looting and pillaging. I understand that's what the U.S. government does. We all understand that. If somebody says, Garland, the mafia don, as I've said, I knew some mafia figures. Got along with them well. They liked me. Actual mafia figures. And when I saw them, I respected them. I saw them out there. I used to see them out on their boats, big, beautiful boats out there. I respected them. I have nothing bad to say about them. But I'm not that. Why I got to disrespect people, right? And if I went before the mafia, when I came in there, I wouldn't disrespect the mafia don because I know he's got his made men around. He's got all these people. The bartender right be there. I'd say, good afternoon, Mr. Corleone. Nice to see you. Very nice to see you, sir. Thank you for inviting me here. And when I'd leave, thank you, sir. I wouldn't disrespect the don for this reason. There's a hierarchy here. There's a power dynamic going on. And when somebody's talking to the boss, the big man, the alpha, the president of the United States, right? He's the alpha. If you disrespect him in his own house, everybody's looking. All the underlings are looking. You've disrespected the king. Oh, you done messed up now. They're all looking back at the king. They look at you. They look at the king. You done messed up now, son. But they don't know what the king's going to do. So now they're looking at the king. And the king, although he has the power, knows he's got to maintain the power. He knows he's always got people nipping at his heels. He knows he's got his second in command, hoping he'll go and drop so that guy can become president. He knows become president. The times are tough. That he's the king, but he could fall from grace, from power, anything. So now Zelensky comes in there talking all over him, dressed like a janitor. He just needed a little sign, "Hi, my name is." He should have really had that on that. On that green elf uniform should have, "Hi, my name is the Zelensky. How may I help you?" Like a little Walmart uniform. That's what he had on. He looked like a fool. It's disrespectful to the decorum necessary for the so-called leader of a country, but he's just a puppet. It's disrespectful. So he comes in there. Everybody's looking at Trump when it's all over with. Man, he disrespected you, Trump. But everybody in their mind says, I think Trump's going to get some paybacks now. He's got to. And it wasn't that Trump's going to get some paybacks. He's got to. Let me add this. Who else does Trump need to pay back? Zelensky leaves. He goes to Fox News. Hey, are you going to apologize? I don't think I did anything wrong. Well, you disrespect the president and you don't think that's wrong? In his own house. Now, people say he ambushed him. Watch the whole 50 or 40 minutes, whatever it is. Watch the whole thing. They were having a talk, and the Trump team was like, well, I'm just talking normally. And Zelensky, kept trying to renegotiate the deal. The deal wasn't getting renegotiated. And in fact, what happened was J.D. Vance was talking to this Polish journalists, and they were asking him questions, and then Zelensky got in and tried to get involved in the conversation. JD, man, you're in the White House. His name's not JD. His name's Mr. Vice President. That's what it is. You're in front of the cameras. You're in the White House. Mr. Vice President. Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, and not JD. Now, granted, you got on a janitor's uniform, and I guess as a janitor, you call everybody a first name, but they ain't janitors. They got on suits, dude. Custom tailored. You got a janitor's uniform. You look like an idiot. So you disrespected everybody in the room. Then you go to Fox News. I ain't do nothing wrong. Okay. Then you go on X or whatever in a snarky way. Thank you. It came across as snarky. Then, if that ain't bad enough, these idiots over in Europe, now they got to disrespect Trump too. They got to disrespect, not just Trump, forget Trump. They're disrespecting the office of the president. We support you. Europe supports you. Everybody supports you. Okay. He comes over there, Keir Starmer's hugging, slobbering all over him. Look like Joe Biden sniffing his hair, right? I'm like, what the hell? Keir Starmer, the guy comes and, well, what did Keir Starmer do? He made a point. And the point is, screw Trump. We're on your side. Screw Trump. We all got you. Then what did Starmer do on Sunday? When they get up Sunday, Starmer, Macron, and this flock of lunatics get together. We got a new plan, a brand new plan, unlike any other plan we've had. It's boots on the ground and planes in the air. American planes in the air, that is. We're going to go back to Trump. After Trump has told him, he's talked to him and talked to him and talked to him until he was blue in the face. He said to them, listen to me. You ain't getting American troops. We're trying to get a peace deal. I'm not backing you up. I'm not supporting you. I'm nothing. Ain't happening. So what do? They smooch all over old monkey boy. And when they get finished, this guy, I don't care what you think about him. He's a puppet. Joe Biden set up this dude as a puppet. They put him in power, and now he's a puppet. I don't want to hear about whining about poor old Zelensky. When you make a deal with the devil, sooner or later, he's going to come for the price of your soul. He made a deal with the devil. He got all kind of stolen money. How much has this guy's got? He's got a villa in France or Tuscany or somewhere. He's got a property in in Miami, London, Israel. Come on. You're a comedian and not a very good one in the poorest country in Europe. How'd you make all that money? You ain't Jay-Z. You ain't Snoop Dogg. He's got more money than Jay-Z and Snoop Dogg. How did you pull that out in Ukraine? Easy. Because you're a crook. and you stole it. And Biden and his crew, Kolomoisky or the guy that owned TV One or whatever it was in Ukraine, they all worked together. They pumped this guy full of loot. They let him steal all kind of money because he was doing their dirt, and he got too big for his britches. And all of a sudden, he thinks he really is the president of Ukraine. You're a puppet. That's all you've ever been. And now you're a puppet, Pinocchio. You think you're a real boy. You're nothing but a wooden puppet. And now you're going to find out just how much of a puppet you are. Have you ever heard of bin Laden? What happened to bin Laden? In Afghanistan, he was a mujahideen. That's what they called him at first, spirit warrior. The U.S. pumped $300 million, gave it to him. We're going to train your people. We're going to arm them. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And at some point, the man got to be more trouble than he was worth. And they pumped him full of lead and threw him off an aircraft carrier, allegedly. I don't know what happened to him, but I do believe they killed him because he was their boy. People are like, I don't think they killed bin Laden. Oh, yeah, they killed bin Laden. Bin Laden was their boy. They always kill their boy because he's the one that can talk. He's the one that can say, well, perhaps you didn't know what really happened. Let me give you the story. Bin Laden wasn't getting the opportunity to do that. Bin Laden might not have had nothing to do with 9/11. I don't know if he did or not, but I don't know. But we'll never know, will we? Because they had to pump him full of lead. They didn't even try to think about this. You know, my background, right? As an investigator, you know what I would have said to them? Bring him back alive. We get a lot of info out of this guy. Maybe we can get him to talk. Maybe whatever, right? Maybe we can twist his arm. Maybe we can offer him something. Maybe we can get something out of him. You want to bring bin Laden back alive so that you could perhaps get information out of him. But they didn't want to bring him back alive. Why? Because they might get information out of him, and he might rat on the U.S.'s filthy hands of doing dirt in the Middle East. Now, bin Laden Part 2, Saddam Hussein, the U.S. helped put the Ba'ath Party in power, gave him what they know he had weapons of mass destruction because they gave them to him. And then when he got rid of them, hey, I got rid of the weapons of mass destruction that you gave me. And they were like, yeah, but you can't get rid of that information that you know all about us giving them to you. So you got to die. So they hung him. Now Zelensky, I don't know what's going to happen to Zelensky. I don't want anything bad to happen to anybody. I'm just saying, bin Laden. How about the erstwhile president of Vietnam, Diem? The United States put him in power. He's the guy. He knows it all. He's our boy Diem. And he got a little big, too big for his britches. They shot him and his brother. The U.S. took them both out. He had to go. It was time. He took it. He made a deal with the devil, and the devil eventually came for his soul. Bad news for you, Zelensky. You know too much now. But before we even get there, as I said, so he's in London Sunday, Macron, Starmer's meeting, and they come up with a brilliant plan. We're going to put boots on the ground in Ukraine, planes in the air in Ukraine. We're going to have a backstop, and we're going to go talk to Trump. Because what did they say? It won't work unless the Americans support it. It won't work unless the Americans back it up. And I'm thinking, well, you guys really are stupider than you look. I mean, come on. You ever look at Keir Starmer? He's like this. His suits are too tight. He always looks like 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. What a raggedy looking bastard, right? This arrogant prick always has tight stuff when he's always like this, like it's, his chin's going out over his shirt. He's a disaster, and he's an idiot. And so Zelensky disrespects the White House, flies back overseas. His boys and all of his crew, Kaja Kallas or whatever that lunatic's name is, she's on Twitter. It looks like the free world needs a new leader. Are we behind you? We support you. They all take sides. Okay, fine. You can do that. But you forgot something. You can't do anything without the U.S. And Trump's got the car keys. So what does Trump do? Okay. You all getting together. You all going, oh, you're tough guys, huh? You got big mouths. You're on Twitter. You're tweeting, oh, we support you, Zelensky. You're slobbered, hugging all over Zelensky, sniffing his hair, coming up with plots and plans that means the United States got to send their troops in and die and go to World War III. Trump snatched the rug out of Zelensky. from under Zelensky and snatch the rug out from under the idiot clown car that includes Keir Starmer and what's his name, and Macron. They're done. Now, here's the key part of that, I think. The key part is right here. Here's the words that make this thing permanent. It's over. The U.S. is not sending any more weapons. They ain't getting no more weapons. Nothing. It's over. You know, I put it like this. It's like, let's just say, you ever know a severe alcoholic? Let's just say somebody was a severe alcoholic, and you say to the person, I'll tell you what I'll do. You set a bottle of whiskey right in front of them. You say, I'll tell you what I'll do. You can stay in this house for 24 hours and you don't touch that whiskey. I'll give you $1 million. You know, severe alcoholic could never get a dime. Before you get the words out of your mouth, they'll have the top off that whiskey. They'll be drinking it down. They can't help themselves. It's a sickness. You know what I mean? It is actual sickness. And it's not that it's a choice on their matter. They want the money. They'd love to get the $1 million, but they can't because they have a sickness. And sadly, a lot of us have known people in our lives, work with people in our lives, different things like that, who have that sickness, and it's very, very sad, right? And I hate when people get angry at people who have addictions. Don't get angry at them. They may be an asshole anyway, but an addiction is a sad thing and it destroys people. But they can't help themselves, can they? Nope. So let me read about the sickness and illness that the leadership of Ukraine has. I'll read it to you again. The suspension will stay in place until Trump sees the Ukrainian leaders, quote, demonstrate a good faith commitment to peace, Bloomberg said, citing a Pentagon official. Here's the problem. Neither the Europeans nor the leadership of Ukraine has the ability to, quote, demonstrate a good faith commitment to peace. And why is that? Because they don't have a good faith commitment to peace. They can't say the words. They don't want a good faith. They don't want peace. Starmer, Macron, they don't have a good faith commitment to peace. See, if they did it, they'd have to. It says they'd have to, and keep in word, keep in mind what I used to do. One of the things I did was statement analysis. Think about this. Here's what Trump said. The suspension will stay in place until he sees. He didn't say hears, did he? Think about that. He didn't say until I hear them say the right words. He says sees them. That's action. Demonstrate. Whoa. That's actions. Until Trump sees, I'm going to view them, demonstrate the actions. Demonstrate a good faith commitment to peace, not just a commitment to peace. Think about it. Because what I'm doing is statement analysis here, right? Take apart a sentence. Don't just read it. What do those words mean? Donald Trump says they'll stay in place, right? Okay. I'm not going to get rid of the suspension until I see. That means I have to view with my own eyes, not my ears. You demonstrate. Demonstrate is actions. Demonstrate what? A commitment to peace? Nope, not a commitment to peace. He didn't ask them to demonstrate a commitment to peace, did he? He asked them to demonstrate a good faith commitment to peace. Good faith commitment to peace. That's hard, isn't it? That's real. That isn't, well, Trump, I'd like to talk to you. We want more weapons. Can you send us the weapons? No. We want peace. we want. I can't get the word out. Peace. Are you trying to say peace? Can I write it down on a piece of paper? That's the best Zelensky can do. You know, that thing that we don't want. That's what we want. How about that? If you just say the word, can I write it down and send it to you? How about an email? No. Trump didn't say it. He didn't say write it. He said, I want to see with my own friggin' eyes, you demonstrate not just a commitment to peace, a good faith commitment to peace. if Zelensky commits a good faith, demonstrates a good faith commitment to peace. I suspect he'll have a difficult time with the same elements in his country who told him literally that they would hang him from a tree in Kiev if he demonstrated a good faith commitment to peace. So the good news is he can do that. The bad news is they'll put a rope around his stinking neck and hang him in Kiev if he does. Next, what's Keir Starmer going to do? What's Macron going to do? How are they going to deal with this? They don't have. You can't, as in the words of Earth, Wind, and Fire. You can't give what you never had, right? They don't have a good faith commitment to peace, and Trump is saying something that he's asking for something they can't give. Let me show you. This ain't all. Hold on, it ain't all. There's other things going on too. The White House has directed the state and Treasury departments to draft proposals for easing certain sanctions on Russia, Reuters reported on Monday, citing sources familiar with the matter. The tentative plans would align with U.S. President Donald Trump's effort to improve diplomatic and economic relations with Moscow. The proposed sanctions relief could include specific Russian entities and individuals, including some business leaders. According to the outlet, the list will be discussed with Russian representatives in the coming days as part of the administrator's broad talks with Moscow. So here, think about it. Apparently, I add this, I don't know if you know, Trump had a meeting with his inner circle. And you know what the meeting was about? You know what it was? Them sons of bitches. That's what they said. They sat in the meeting. Yes, sir, Mr. Trump. Yes, what are we going to do? Okay, everybody here. Tulsi? Yeah. Damn, sons of bitches. Who do they think they are? They got to pay. They got to pay for this. All of them. Oh, they talked about Zelensky. You believe that green ape coming in here, dragging his knuckles, talking to me like he was something. He's nobody. Number one. Number two, how about these clowns in Europe? Who do they think they are? Perhaps we need to demonstrate to them who's in charge here. They must have forgotten. How? Let me get some recommendations. What do you think we can do? Got hands were going off. Oh, I know. Me. Rubio in the back. We can stop giving them weapons. I like that. Take a note there. Tulsi. Get rid of some of the sanctions, maybe open RT back. I don't know. Let the Russian business leaders, Russian entities, just drop all that crap. Screw it. Let's drop it all. Yeah, good idea. Anything else? That's the way it went. He didn't. None of the recommendations did he say no. Hey, here's a guy's name, Russian so and so, Dmitry something-a-vitch. I wonder why he's in charge of aluminum or something. I wonder why he's sanctioned. Give me his name. Yeah, take him off the list too. Who cares? I don't know what the hell he is. Drop him off. Hey, you think it'll piss Starmer off? What can we do that'll really piss off Starmer and Macron? That's what they're thinking. That's what they're all up. That's what they're up to. That's what's coming. They're going to. Today was get backs, as Snoop says. Today was get backs. It was you disrespected me on Friday. I'm going to go play some golf on the weekend. I think Trump had a MAGA rally or something. I'm going to hang out, maybe send a few things out on Truth Social, whatever, and get my head together. And come Monday, we're going to sit down and talk. And we're going to send a message out to these clowns and show them who's boss. I think that's the way it came down. I ain't saying I'm for it. I ain't saying ain't for it. I ain't saying I like it, dislike it, whatever. I'm just saying, all I'm saying is this. Came into the house of the U.S. president and you showed disrespect. And you went back to Europe and they hugged all over you and they chose sides. The U.S. president, whoever he is, has got to reestablish his authority. That's what he's doing. He's reestablished his authority. He had no choice. And he's got to be heavy-handed. And Trump's like, literally like some Azov battalion could be receiving a weapon so that they could hand it. Okay, great. And they just, wait a minute. Let me read this text. Hold on. Take that shit back. Ooh, give me it back. Sorry. It's gone back. But it's already here in Ukraine. I don't care. Look, and what's that in your, you got bullets in your back. Give me those. They say made in USA on them. All that is gone. It's done. It's finished. Now, I suspect too, the one thing I suspect is this, and it's too late for this crap. Here's what I see coming. Zelensky, you're out of here. That the Europeans and the bottom line is this. They're going to try to offer old monkey boy up as a sacrifice. They're going to say to the organ grinder, look, your monkey was disrespectful. Can we get you another monkey? But remember, Trump, what did Trump say? We must read that again. He said, until the leaders, with an S, of Ukraine show a good faith commitment to peace. Leaders with an S. So what did that do? That snatches the rug out of their ability to sacrifice a person such as Zelensky. They can't sacrifice Zelensky. He didn't say give me with a leader. He said the leaders. So now the leadership is in a spot. They got to do something they can't ever do. Is that so? Which means that it's it. That means whatever weapons they got. That means whatever. Do you think they're going to provide any intelligence? And I suspect they're this far from you losing the Starlink. Let me tell you why. I don't think, I wouldn't have done it either. This is why the Trump people have not taken Starlink from them, right? I'll tell you why. When if I get back to negotiating with some guys got hostages, right? I got to say, what leverage do I have? I don't want to get rid of all my leverage at one time. I don't want to fire every bullet I got. You give me this, I'll give you that, but I got to have something to give you. I'll tell you what, I'll give you food and drink. You give me 2 hostages, right? All right, I'll do this and you give me this. Give me 2 more hostages, I'll give you that. I always want to have something I can offer you, because if I ain't got nothing to offer you, how am I going to bargain, right? So if you're Trump, okay, I'm going to snatch everything from you, but Starlink. And I know what you're saying. Well, you should take Starlink. No, because I got no bargaining. Doing sales. I can knock 25% off. I can give you 3 months free. I can give you free delivery for whatever I'm selling. Oh, would you like to buy this, man? Blah, blah, blah. And I try to make the deal with you. Nah, well, it's $1,000 is a little high, but I'll tell you what, I'll tell you what. If you purchase this today, I'll give you 3-month payment free, right? I don't want to say I'll give you 3 months payment free, and I don't want to fire all my weapons, all my rounds at the same time. I want to start by saying, well, tell you what, I can give you 3 months free. We can get this thing signed. Okay. Now, if you say no, I still got 2 more things to fire at you. Well, how 3 months free? Hold on. Let me talk to my husband. 3 months free. I'm getting you close. Now you're thinking about it. Well, is there anything else we could do? Well, I don't know. I'll tell you what. I'll do. It's going to be tough. Deliveries are $179. Make this deal tonight. $179 for delivery. See what I'm doing? I'm not going to go, and I can still do 25% off. I'm holding that till last. If I'm going to do sales, anytime you're bargaining, if you got 3 or 4 things, you don't want to fire them all at one time. You want to fire as few as you can to get the deal, but make your point. And sometimes you fire your heavy one first. But I like to save my heavy one for last, because that's going to get me the deal, right? I was a pretty good salesperson. But my point is, so now Trump, as a guy who writes the art of the deal and stuff, and you may say, stop Starlink, he's got something else. So right now they're like, holy mother of God, what are we going to do? The U.S. has stopped all military, and they're not providing. I'd read earlier that the U.S. is saying they're talking about stopping intelligence, sharing. That would be targeting everything. You're on your own. But he hasn't gotten rid of Starlink, which means they can only be but so mouthy. Please, please, please shut up and get out of here. Maybe you'll wear a suit next time, you lazy, disheveled bum. Get out of here. And they can't be but so smart with him. because they're still afraid he's got another big card to play. He can snatch Starlink out. Now, I'm saying he ain't going to do it before the night's over, but right now, I suspect Trump ain't going to snatch Starlink, because now Zelensky might want to come back. Trump will probably say no, not until you show a good faith. But they can't go but so far. They can't make but so much noise because he still has another card to play. So that's why, if anybody's asking you how come he didn't try, not that he may not, he may decide to go ahead and do it. Now, let me say this. If he snatches Starlink, they really are in a world of shit. They really are in a world of trouble if he snatches Starlink, because, of course, they can't communicate other than at the company level. Otherwise, they might as well be if sending an email to Russia. Everything will be intercepted, right? So if they don't have Starlink, they're done, which means they're in horrible fear that he'll snatch Starlink, and that's where he wants them. And he has to kiss their butt. I mean, they have to continue to kiss his butt in hopes that he won't snatch Starlink, but they're out of weapons. They're out of money. They're out of time. They're out of hope. And they did that to themselves. They didn't realize something. I don't want to hear this, Trump this or Trump that, Trump's wrong, Trump's right. Well, I don't want to hear it. Zelensky knew what he was doing. He knew he was a puppet. He knew he was offering his country up like a traitor. These guys are out here. They're beating people, grabbing them on the streets, throwing them in vans, sending them to the front line. I don't want to hear it. He pushed it too far. Keir Starmer, you should have known. If it wasn't bad enough, when this happened, Keir Starmer should have been like, hey, Zelensky, you were wrong. He should have called Trump. I apologize for what Zelensky did. I'm going to try to talk to the boy. I don't know what's wrong with him, but hey, look, man, I ain't in this. I'm sorry he did that. Don't put that on me. But no, what does he do? He hugs him. Trump, you lowly scumbag. You're nothing to us. Now you've got Europe and Zelensky. They're at war with Trump. They're at war with Russia. Let's face it, the whole rest of the world wants peace. Africa, Middle East, South America, Asia, everybody wants peace. And a lot of the people in Europe want peace. So you got this tiny little corrupt, stupid leadership ruling elite in Europe. And they're the ones that want the war to continue, but nobody, and the Nazi regime, puppet regime. But who are they puppets for? The organ grinder, the organ grinder's monkey. The organ grinder walked away and said, I don't want this monkey no more. He said to Europe, look, I don't want this monkey no more. I'm tired of grinding the organ for this monkey. He's more trouble than he's worth. He's pooping all over the place. You can have the monkey. And they're like, yeah, but we can't control the monkey without you. He's like, well, okay, well, see what you can do. I'm out. Bad news, pal. Bad news for them. And and here's my prediction. They ain't Trump. I'll put it like this. Trump's phone is ringing tonight, and it's Starmer and it's Macron and those clowns saying, whoa, perhaps we were a little bit out of line there, old Trumpy. Sorry about that. We didn't mean that. Perhaps we can. No. MAGA on Twitter, I'll guarantee you, MAGA world is standing up, cheering everywhere. Hooray! You know what they're saying about Trump? You showed those bastards. You stood up to them. You put them in their place. He went to strongman role. He gets great. This is great for Trump because MAGA world is thrilled about it. And the peaceniks around the world, like me, are like, good, because hopefully that day gets us closer to peace. Hey, no more weapons. Guess what? The Russians a long time ago said what? They said, you guys could stop this quick. If you stop giving them weapons, the war will be over in a month or two. Now, how do the Ukrainian soldiers keep fighting? You're on the front line and you get a call. Hey, guys, how's it going? Great. We're firing away. It's kind of rough. There's bombs coming in and stuff, but we're maintaining. So tell me, when's that next shipment of arms coming in? We need more rounds. Yeah, that's what we called you about. You might want to conserve your arms a little bit. Just move. There's going to be maybe a little bit longer this time until we're able to re-up you with ammo. So instead of firing a lot of rounds, just every now and then fire a round, just kind of symbolically to make noise. Keep them off your back right now. And the guys on the front lines are like, okay, so are you saying the round's going to be a couple of days late? No. A week late? No. A month late? No. When are the rounds coming? That's what we're trying to tell you about the rounds. Look, first of all, think about it. The Russians fought with shovels, and they've been doing pretty good. Washing machines, shovels. Hey, they fight with whatever they can get. Those Russians, they're just a bunch of barbarians. So why don't we do this, guys? You got a bayonet on the end of your gun. It's pretty sharp. We'll send sharpening stones. We got plenty of sharpening stones. Sharpen up the old bayonet. Fix bayonets and charge the enemy, right? Like the good old days. Just think about it. When they had muskets, they got one good shot. The enemy's coming over to breach. Boom! Bayonets, boy! You bayonet those darn Ruskies. That's what they need. In fact, it'll scare them. So here's what we're going to do. We're going with a new plan here. Instead of firing, wasting our weapons and gunpowder, it's bad. All that smoke comes up, bad for the environment. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to shine up the old bayonets and we're going to charge the Ruskies. How's that sound? And the guys on there are like, I think you're trying to tell us there's no ammunition coming. Are you trying to tell us there's no ammunition coming? They're like, kind of like, maybe not immediately. We might have to patch things up with Trump at some point, or maybe, I don't know, but I'm just saying you probably ought to sharpen up the old bayonets, because when you finish firing those rounds you got in the trench, ain't nothing coming after that. Nothing. You know what that means? 2 words they use in the military: general retreat. That's what it means. General retreat. Everybody in the area, fall back, run for your lives. Should we lay down suppressing fire? Well, if you got rounds, you can lay down suppressing fire, but we're kind of out of rounds, so we're just going to pretty much run. And I guess that means no fuel. We've been providing them fuel and things like that, rounds, fuel, food. So you got no sea rations coming. You got no rounds coming. You got nothing coming. I think we're looking, getting pretty close to the end here. What do you think, guys? All right, let's try this. Let's take a look and see.
For the tickets. Breaking news, U.S. hitting the brakes on flow of arms to Ukraine. So they're not, military financing has been stopped. And officials are meeting to consider suspending another type of assistance. So why is this good news? This is good news because that means the war will end. And so Ukrainians will stop being slaughtered senselessly for U.S. neocon economic hitmen. That's what this is all about. That's why they blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, so we could sell more liquefied natural gas to Europe to try to cripple Russia economically, but it actually didn't. It actually crippled Germany, which is the economic engine of Europe, and that's why they're in what they call contraction, otherwise known as a recession. But now they call it a contraction. So this is good news. The Trump administration has stopped financing new weapon sales to Ukraine and is considering freezing weapons shipments from U.S. stockpiles, moves that threaten Kiev's ability to fight at a critical time. The critical time, you mean after the war has been lost, and they're grabbing able-bodied men off street corners and throwing them in a van so they could go get slaughtered? I mean, that kind of a critical time? Of course, the Wall Street Journal. They want more war. It's all about money. The financing was halted in recent weeks amid the administration's freeze on foreign aid. But the move to potentially shut down the main pipeline for it's ironic they use the term pipeline, isn't it? Since we blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. For arms transfers to Ukraine comes days after a contentious meeting between Trump and Zelensky. The tense exchange Friday raised fears across Europe that the U.S. could be moving away from the wider Western alliance. Good. There's no point to NATO. As Chomsky said decades ago, there's no point to NATO. Trump on Monday also lashed out publicly at Zelensky for saying the war with Russia was likely to continue for some time. This is the worst statement that could have been made by Zelensky, and America will not put up with it for much longer, Trump wrote on his social media platform, Truth Social, using a different spelling of the Ukrainian leader's name. Was it D-I-C-K? Anyway, come on, that's me being... I'm being cheeky. The Trump administration in late January ordered a stop to all foreign aid, including military aid, except to Israel and Egypt. On Friday, the administration said it was sending Israel another $3 billion because they are cucks to Israel. Donald Trump is a cuck to Israel, just like they all are, everybody in government, including more than 35,000 new 2,000-pound bombs. Whoa. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in recent weeks signed a waiver to exempt Ukraine from the ban Trump imposed on foreign assistance, but senior State Department official Peter Marocco hasn't sent a required letter to the Pentagon to allow the aid to flow to Kiev. Withholding the letter has resulted in a de facto halt to new weapons deals for Ukraine using the U.S. foreign military financing system, which is managed by the State Department and pays for weapons for some countries, according to current. Would it be great if they paid for, I don't know, food, clothing, housing, and medical care? Wouldn't that be something if they did that? I mean, for Americans, you know, for roads and bridges and trains and things like that. Wouldn't that be amazing? When I was a kid, I grew up on the southwest side of Chicago, and there was I was half block away from Vidham Park. And when I was a kid, they built a new gym. It's like beautiful. We had to borrow this tiny little gym that was inside of this grammar school. That was our gym for the neighborhood. It was tiny, and it was only open for a few hours a day, and it was available to us because it was a public school, and it was tiny. And then they built this beautiful. I was told at the time, it was in the 80s. At the time, it was like, I think they spent $3 million on it, and it was beautiful. It had showers, it had locker rooms, it had everything you would want in it. It had stands, a second floor balcony stands to watch game. It was, and I got to tell you, it made me feel good about my city. It made me feel like, oh, there's actually somebody in the community who cares about people. Look what they did for us. They gave us this beautiful gymnasium. That like Tom Brokaw. And it did it like affects your mentality. It was like, oh, my government is actually investing in our community in a tangible way that actually elevates and helps everyone's life in a big way. It was really, really made you feel good. But they don't do that anymore. What they do is they spend money on bombs to go kill other people for economic hitmen. Bomb money. We always got bomb money. They always got bomb money. We keep that next to our drinking money. Nobody touches that. Okay. Ukraine is able to get weapons from the U.S. through several means, including foreign military financing, which provides loans and grants for nations to buy weapons from U.S. defense companies. So what that is the United States just giving money to weapons men. They just send it to that guy, then they send it. Instead of directly paying them, they send it to this foreign military financing, and then they send it. It's just, that's called corruption. That's called graft. It allows Pentagon to buy weapons for Kiev, but is currently out of funds. However, Presidential Drawdown Authority, which allows the Defense Department to pull directly from its own stockpiles, has been most significant tool for arming Ukraine. On Monday, the White House is holding a meeting, that'd be today, to consider suspending shipments using the Drawdown Authority, a congressional aide and a second person familiar with the matter said. The shutdown of financing new weapons sales began before Friday's acrimonious meeting, during which Ukraine and the U.S. were supposed to sign a framework agreement for a mineral rights deal, but instead canceled the ceremony and a scheduled press conference. But the meeting to consider suspending ongoing weapons shipments to Ukraine drawn from U.S. military inventories emerged after the Friday blowup at the White House. Zelensky's bad at what he's doing. If his, I have a feeling that Zelensky could be pretending to want more war, but he really doesn't. Because, again, he ran on a peace thing, and he did try to get them to stop shelling the Donbass, the Azov battalion. He really was a peace guy. And he's been forced by the Nazis in Ukraine and NATO powers, both threatening to kill him if he stops the war. So maybe that was his way to get the war stopped. Like, I'll go out and I'll piss off Donald Trump and they'll stop the funding and then the war will finally end. I'll have to negotiate a peace deal because we don't have any weapons or money. Maybe that's what Zelensky. Do you think that's possible?
I don't. It just seems like he has such arrogance that he does want to, you just have to give me the
Could
money.
he be that stupid? Maybe he is that stupid. But anyway, there it is. So I'm cheering this on, and watch all the people who consider themselves liberal cheering on more war. When did the liberals become pro-war? I know, 2016 when Donald Trump got elected. That's when. Come see us do stand. Come see us do stand-up in Baltimore, Hartford, Syracuse, Atlantic City, Levittown, New York, Cohoes, New York, Providence, Rhode Island, and San Jose, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for the tickets. So we all saw what happened with J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, and Zelensky in the White House. It's amazing the different reactions. So the brainwashed and the brain dead think that somehow Zelensky's some kind of victim, instead of what he is, which is a criminal who's skimming money and wants to prolong a war. But he's also, in his defense, he's being pressured by lots of different types of people to keep that war going. Some of the most powerful people in the world and some of the biggest killers in the world. So, but Matt Gaetz went on a scorched earth campaign on Twitter, tweet after tweet after tweet, going after Zelensky. It started off with this: Zelensky is a grifter. Look at that, 44,000 likes on that, 1.3 million views, and you could tell I liked it. And so that's what's kind of started it off. Zelensky's a grifter. He went on to tweet out a video of, now this is a congresswoman from Indiana who's also Ukrainian, and he tweeted this out. Let's listen to it.
If you could give advice to President Trump right now about this minerals deal that is floating around, his desire that mirrors your and mine to end the war, what advice would you give President Trump?
To be as tough as you can with them. When I came to Ukraine, I understand who these people are. Actually, Zelensky and I are the same age. He was born in 1978. So we both grew up in the tough, wild 90s. And you see what's happened when socialism fall apart. You have criminal activity. This was pretty bad. And he grew up in very criminal areas. So I understand who these people are. And I was very tough on them. And I said, you know what? You can do whatever you want with your money and weapons. But with our money and weapons, we'll tell you what to do. And if you don't like it, you can go to hell. And I probably said even tougher word.
Whoa. So that's someone with a very thick Ukrainian accent telling him to go to hell. So he tweeted that out, and then he retweeted this tweet. There it is. So he retweeted it out. There it is. Also, this Representative Steve Womack tweeted this out. So there's Zelensky. And he said, President Zelensky movingly spoke of Ukrainians fighting for their lives and against Putin's evil. We've seen the atrocities. There must be consequences. America and the entire global community must stand with Ukraine and provide them with what is needed to defend freedom and their nation. Now, that's just someone, I'll tell you right now, that's just someone who doesn't care about how many Ukrainians get slaughtered. Because the war should have, the longer this war goes on, the worse it is for Ukraine. And if they end it today, this is the best time. The best time for them to end it was yesterday. The second best time is today. The worst time is tomorrow, because Russia is just going to take more land and there's going to be more Ukrainians slaughtered. So Matt Gaetz retweeted it out and said, another member of the Zelensky wing of the Republican Party. So he's going right at Representative Steve Womack. So that was from March 16th. Of 2022. So he's going back and he's exposing all the people who were a part of the lie that is the Ukraine war. Now, again, most of my I still live in Hollywood, and most of my friends in Hollywood believe what they see on TV. They believe everything that the government says and what the news says about the Ukraine war. They believe what they say about the Syrian war, the Libyan war, the Afghanistan war. They don't believe them about Iraq anymore, but they did. So it's kind of so that's what he's picking out. He was picking out old tweets, retweeting them, and giving comments on it. So that's Matt Gaetz going scorched earth on Womack. And then here is one from Michael McCall from 2022. It was an honor to meet the First Lady of Ukraine and her inspiring words. And hear her inspiring words as we approach the 6-month mark of Putin's war in Ukraine. We cannot forget our humanity, and we must continue to stand with Ukraine. Now, these people know the true story, that this war was provoked by NATO, the United States, Biden administration, the neocons, and the war machine. And he retweets this. Again, this is all yesterday. Trump's dog-walking Zelensky exposed Zelensky, sure. He's talking about their meeting at the White House. But it also exposed the failed foreign policy of the neocons who would send endless amounts of your money overseas, like this Republican Congressman, Michael McCall. He's not messing around. This is one from April 23rd, 2024. Republicans for Ukraine, Senator Chuck Grassley. I don't buy this notion that it is conservative or Republican position to abandon the American leadership that has kept the peace. I make no apologies for supporting Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan in the face of threats from the axis of anti-American dictatorship. He retweeted that yesterday and said, I'd probably apologize for the Ukraine part. I think he should apologize for all of it. That's where I'm at. But I'll take it. I'll join with Matt Gaetz where we agree. And there it is. You agree on the Ukraine part. So that's nice. Look at that. So he's going scorched earth on all of them. Here he is again. 23 hours ago, before Trump and J.D. Vance did their brilliance with Zelensky in the Oval Office, this was the nonsense foreign policy doctrine that governed D.C. Republicans, as articulated by, there it is again, Representative McCall. And he tweets out a 1 and 38-second video, which I'm not going to bother to play, because the point of this is to show how Matt Gaetz is going scorched earth on the neocon Republicans who have been duping the American people into sending hundreds of billions of dollars to another pointless war that is an economic war. Okay, just so you know. Here he is. And then he retweeted this video from when he was on in December of 2022 when Tucker Carlson had his show still on Fox News. Before they fired him for telling the truth about the Ukraine war, he thanked them. So yesterday he tweeted this out. McConnell and Pelosi brought Zelensky to Congress to provide air cover for an indefensible spending bill. Ukraine gets economic development, agriculture, and border patrol. We get racial equity mandates for us here at home. I'm not sorry, Lauren Boebert, and I won't stand for it. So he tweeted that out. Thank you, Tucker. So yesterday, he said, thank you, Tucker Carlson, for allowing me to make these points about Zelensky in 2022. Got white his teeth look there. Very white. So this is funny. Hillary Clinton tweeted this out. Wouldn't want to hurt Putin's feelings. And it's a picture of Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary. Trump's defense secretary, Hegseth, orders Cyber Command to stand down with Russia. Right, so they're making peace overtures. Hillary Clinton, who's a blood-soaked psychopathic warmonger, she tweets that out and says, wouldn't want to hurt Putin's feelings. So she still wants to play this McCarthyism, this ramping up of tensions. She doesn't want peace. She never did. She's a warmonger. She's the worst kind of warmonger. And then Pete Hegseth responds with this, and it's pretty nicely. So who that is? That's Lavrov. That's the Russian foreign minister. And there they are pressing a button. It's called the Great Reset. Remember they're doing the Great Reset when she was Secretary of State? Well, we're going to be buddies with Russia again until we need to make them be our enemy again so we can sell more weapons and do more war. So that was a pretty good burn. And Matt Gaetz reposted, Crooked Hillary just got owned. Matt Gaetz retweeted that. His whole timeline is just filled with this kind of stuff about Ukraine. Here's one more. This guy, Derek Van Orden, he said, I'm a member of Congress and a former Navy SEAL and the longest serving enlisted member of the United States military to ever be elected to Congress in history of my country. I have served in uniform in combat in multiple areas of conflict. I must be frank with you, Mr. President, how you treated my president, real Donald Trump. He's talking to Zelensky and my vice president by trying to talk over them and show disrespect in our Oval Office was reprehensible. I will not be voting for an effing nickel in military aid for you until you get your mind right. This can be in public or in private, but I will remind you that the slim majority in our House of Representatives, I can stop any initiative, including the money coming to you. We want peace in Europe, but in no way, shape, or form will America ever be your bitch. Feel free to contact my office if you'd like support. So he's still offering his support. He just wants Zelensky to be, so he's trying to play both sides. That's what he's doing. And Matt Gaetz catches it. And he says, Van Orden has been a reliable Zelensky simp up until this point. Matt, he's going after Navy SEALs. He's going after congressmen, senators. He's not messing around. Here's one more. So do you see this? Keir Starmer, that's the prime minister. Action, not just words. Britain stands with Ukraine today and always. And he tweets out. So there they are. There's Keir Starmer embracing Zelensky. And he says, you can have him. Here's one more. He retweeted this. Representative Victoria Spartz has joined Matt Gaetz' show on Friday to discuss Zelensky's disrespectful behavior in the Oval Office. He failed to defend his country, being so insulting to the American people after how much was done by us for Ukraine and for Europe. I can't believe this. So he retweeted that out. That was on March 1st. He retweeted that. And then Mark Levin, the great Mark Levin, he tweeted out Zelensky, great leader. He tweeted out, I think we can all agree the great one nailed this take. Now, to be clear, I've consistently been against the U.S. involvement in this war. So I'm a little confused. I think he's making fun of him, Mark Levin. Is he being sarcastic here? Because Mark Levin was always for the Ukraine war, as far as I can tell. Mark, you used to berate House conservatives for opposing funding to Ukraine. When did you change your mind? Or have you? So he's going after talk show hosts, popular conservative talk show hosts. There's nothing conservative about supporting the Ukraine war. It's just neocon, warmongering. So he went after him, went after senators, went after congressmen. Matt Gaetz on the warpath, going scorched earth. And I say, tip of the hat. Great job to Matt Gaetz.
D.
Welcome back, everyone. Is Nord Stream 2 pipeline coming back? There are rumors that the gas transit may be revived soon as part of the previously announced plans, initiatives to restart economic cooperation between the United States and Russia. As you can see here, if you're not too familiar, Nord Stream 1 runs from Vyborg, Russia to Lubmin, Germany, and Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline starts in Russia's Ust-Luga and goes all the way to Lubmin as well. Nord Stream 2 was blown up in September of 2022. It has been 3 years. They've gone really, really fast. However, official investigations of who should be held responsible led nowhere, as one would expect. There have been multiple announcements made and, of course, assumptions made. However, no official statements have been released, despite the fact that Biden notoriously said that he knew how to take care of Nord Stream 2 pipeline if need be.
There will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it. How will you do that exactly, since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control?
We will, I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
And I think the administration is very gratified to know that Nord Stream 2 is now, as you like to say, a hunk of metal at the bottom of the sea.
Then, of course, after Nord Stream was blown up, let's not forget this famous masterpiece of a tweet by Poland's Sikorski, who openly praised the United States. He said, "Thank you, USA," and he later deleted that post. President Trump was asked whether he knew who was responsible. He shared his commentary on the destruction of Nord Stream during an interview with Tucker Carlson. He said, quote, "I don't want to get our country into even more trouble, but I can tell you who it was not. It was not Russia," said Trump. According to Germany's Bild, the United States plans to take over the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. The US also plans to, quote, "act as an intermediary and to actually transport Russian gas through the Nord Stream 2 pipeline to Europe." A very interesting article was recently published by Financial Times, and so this is what I want to focus on in this video. Whether or not this information is actually valid and verifiable, that is challenging to know at this point. This is new. However, I would imagine that Nord Stream 2 is a mutually beneficial project that is very promising for all parties involved. For the West, securing access to Russian energy resources is very much needed to potentially restart its manufacturing capacities and to improve its declining economic performance. For Russia, on the other hand, energy has been one of its key sources of revenue. It is a very mutually beneficial deal, which is why it was developed in the first place. Now, according to Financial Times, the person who is involved in reviving the pipeline is named Matthias Warning, who is currently under Western sanctions, according to the article. Previously, he managed Nord Stream 2 parent company. To revive the gas transit, reportedly US investors will be involved. Of course, as we understand very well, this is too early to tell, and for this project to even begin, for the transit to restart, economic and financial sanctions would need to be lifted completely. There are sanctions that were put in place by the United States, and then there are sanctions that were put in place by the EU. And while the United States may be at some point potentially willing to lift these sanctions as part of the negotiations process, for example, it is likely that the EU will continue to hold on to every and any opportunity that it has to prove its own relevance. First, Russian banks would also need to have access to SWIFT to transact with Western institutions. And second, Russian gas company Gazprom and its affiliates would also need to be able to do business without any sanctions and obstacles in their way. So it may be safe to say that first and foremost, the Ukraine conflict would have to be nearing its final chapter for any of these initiatives to be implemented. Financial Times reports that the European Union learned about the plans to revive Nord Stream 2 weeks ago, and of course, it didn't like it. It disapproved of such initiatives. Here it says, senior EU officials became aware of the Nord Stream 2 discussions in recent weeks. Leaders of several European countries are concerned and have discussed the matter. So this never really stops to amaze me. The EU is economically declining, and it has been for a while. It is not a secret. These countries have just committed to continued support to Ukraine during a summit with Zelensky in London, and they committed to increasing military efforts, to increasing their military spending, creating 2 separate funds for defense and infrastructure, and yet they refuse to do what is clearly in their best economic interest. The lack of competence is truly, truly remarkable. One of the reasons why we may be hearing about Nord Stream again is the Trump administration's willingness to end the conflict in Ukraine and to reestablish relations with Russia. Nord Stream is a mutually beneficial project, and if the United States and its investors do work out a deal, the EU will once again likely be on the sidelines. Trump might be approaching reviving the pipeline as a way to use it as a negotiations tactic, although for Russia, that has already established closer trade ties with countries of the global south, this is likely an appealing but no longer a vital project. So to that end, Financial Times writes, ownership of the pipeline could, in theory, give US investors a lever to control Russian gas flow to Europe, which is a key market for US liquefied natural gas exports shipped across the Atlantic in tankers. So if the United States does get involved in reviving the project, it may benefit from it, as Europe would be fully dependent on energy supplies that are controlled either by the United States or by Russia. It is a very interesting scenario, in my opinion, that could potentially put the EU in even more of an unstable position. In Russia, there are no discussions about reopening Nord Stream at this point in time. This is according to the article. Dmitry Peskov, who is the spokesperson, said that he was not aware of any such projects or initiatives. So very, very interesting new developments, I would say. It certainly makes sense to revive Nord Stream. It guarantees mutual benefits, it guarantees prosperity, and it also guarantees mutual economic interest that could help resolve or prevent conflicts in the future. Hopefully, the European Union and Europe as a whole realizes that it is time to end the conflict and it is time to return back to sanity and to cooperation. Reviving Nord Stream would certainly be a step in the right direction for all parties involved. As always, thanks so much for watching. If you haven't already,
are going to be looking at some disturbing videos, strange and odd news stories, and as always, let's go ahead and get right into today's video. Back in 2024, news had come out that there was going to be a smart prison under a company called Cognify. Now, Cognify has come out under their social media and stated that they are almost finished finalizing this project, but basically it's just that. And this is going to relate for what I say later on in this video, where prisoners will have the choice of serving out their sentences over years, or they can serve it in perhaps a day, because they can get a chip planted in their brain where it'll feel like they served out 20 years. And not just that, they will feel all the pain and suffering of their victims. Their brain will have them believe they did all this over the course of 20 years, when in actuality, it only happened in 5 minutes. While some may believe this is good, this is great, especially for repeat offenders, my thing is, are they using these prisoners as test subjects? Because who really wouldn't want to reduce their sentence down to 5 minutes when they have to serve 20 years? And could this be something that's coming for the rest of us, given the smart cities, like I said, which I'll be talking about later on in this video? Like Larry Ellison puts it, when it comes to Project Stargate, the most expensive AI program ever, $500 billion, they will be making sure the public are on their best behavior. Like if your behavior falls out of certain guidelines that they do not like, perhaps you follow certain politics, or perhaps you speak out against something, or you don't agree with something, is that also considered not being on your best behavior?
Has come up with a futuristic prison concept called Cognify.
The Cognify concept offers a new approach to criminal rehabilitation, transforming how society deals with offenders by focusing on rehabilitation rather than punishment.
So it would implant synthetic memories of a crime from the victim's perspective into a criminal's brain. The system would use a VR kind of device to display AI-generated footage of the crime along with a brain implants to induce feelings of remorse or regret. The process would take minutes, but feel like years and cost much less than traditional incarceration methods.
Whoa.
I don't know how that would cost less, because that seems like a lot of scanning and technology and research.
I feel as though I need to reread that again because that was a lot to process. I was like,
there's
what?
a video. Yeah, there's a video that I saw yesterday on Instagram, at least, that breaks down the whole thing and the process and inducing the victim's memories.
It made me kind of think of, remember that show Black Mirror? Like that kind of a
it
plot
reads
to it,
like that, right?
Yeah, totally.
For sure.
Okay, so this is what I found.
On the balloon thing?
Right, just quickly.
Your body cams will be transmitting that. The police will be on their best behavior because we're constantly watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on.
Ellison's vision is for AI to analyze data from this network of cameras in real time.
So with all this talk of smart cities, especially given all these wildfires, really makes you wonder how their prison system will work, their AI prison system. Well, we're looking at it. You will not go into a prison. You'll just be put into a lab, strapped in, and they'll plant something into your brain that will flood you with memories to, again, put you on your best behavior. This also comes off very similar to MK Ultra. Remember that video that I made where I said how the CIA came out and said MK Ultra was indeed true, but no need to worry because they are no longer doing that project. And I said that's only because that project is now considered old. There is now a far more advanced project taking its place. And again, this comes off similar to that. But getting into the topic of smart cities as a whole, so I have been noticing that something strange has been happening in North Carolina. And if you're not aware, perhaps you're not from the United States, there have been multiple wildfires raging in North Carolina, South Carolina, and even Georgia. As of right now, news has come out to let us know that more than 3,300 acres have burned in North Carolina alone. But here's the thing, as I was searching these wildfires in North and South Carolina, I ran across this news story, which I thought was recent. I thought they were talking about the current fires that are taking place. But no, this news story came out January 30th.
Welcome back into Fox for the Live. We're going to continue to track the wildfires that are burning in western North Carolina. The Crooked Creek fire is now 100% contained, but has left a 220-acre burn scar in the Old Fort area. The North Carolina Forest Service issued a statement urging residents to cease any outdoor burning until those conditions improve. So let's get an update on the fire situation in western North Carolina. Joining me over the phone with more insight on the current wildfire situation is EJ. He's DeWiggins. He's going to be with the Fire Information Officer for the North Carolina Forest Service. And EJ, thank you for being with us. Can you kind of speak to the current fire situation? We know we have 100% containment, but does that mean we have full control of what we're seeing right now with the Crooked Creek fire?
Yeah, that's correct. We do have 100% containment, so the fire is not going to be staffed tonight. Tomorrow, as the conditions improve, we'll go back in and start checking on hot spots. But at the moment, like you said, we've got 100% containment on the Crooked Creek fire.
That's good. That's great. I mean, how quickly everybody was able to get together to build that containment. There was 2 other spots that popped up. Any concerns with those, EJ?
Well, I was primarily working on the Crooked Creek fire in McDowell County today, so I don't have any other information on other fires in the area. I mean, I can tell you that the Crooked Creek fire started yesterday about 1:29 p.m. in the afternoon. It was caused by a tree that had fallen on the power line. We had some windy conditions yesterday, and North Carolina Forest crews worked throughout the night to establish containment lines and work on some structure protection.
Now, that news story came out January 31st. Yes, it was quickly contained, but 220 acres still burned. The thing is, North Carolina has been facing multiple wildfires ever since September, October. Look at this article here, back on October 15th, 2024. Ever worsening wildfire threat burns closer to cities and towns. And it goes on to say how the wildfire situation in North Carolina is getting worse and worse to the point they are afraid it's going to take over, again, towns and cities. The problem happens to be outside of the fires themselves being the problem. This is not their wildfire season. When this news article came out and other articles talking about this ever-growing wildfire threat in October, December, and so forth, that is not their wildfire season. This news article came out from Spectrum Local News a month prior to this wildfire on January 30th, where they said that 2 wildfires burned over 1,000 acres in North Carolina. This article was published on December 9th. A 730-acre wildfire dubbed the Coyote Fire is now mostly contained at Crowder's Mountain State Park, according to the North Carolina Forest Service website. But this article says something very important. It says fire activity is picking up. In North Carolina, there were 236 wildfires during October, 282 wildfires during November, and so far in December, we have had about 194 wildfires already. And again, this article was published on December 9th. The North Carolina Fire Forest Service said on that Monday. Well, what do they blame? Well, they blame Hurricane Helene for the increase of wildfires, but take a look at this suspiciously timed article back on February 26, 2024. A certain change, you can't say the whole thing without getting fact-checked by YouTube, but a certain change could make devastating wildfires more likely in North Carolina. And this was published on February 26, 2024. Could North Carolina see quick spreading wildfires like the recent ones in Maui, California, and Canada? North Carolina State University researcher Robert Scheller says risk is growing across the state and climate is fueling the flames. You see how the so-called powers that be like to use news and media to get you prepared in advance for what they have planned. Months after this article comes out same year, North Carolina is now facing some of its worst wildfires it's ever had, and in abundance. I have also been noticing, and people have been noticing as well, that these fires, once they have been put out and contained, they start right back up again. For example, there have been news stories where people had evacuated Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and once the fires had been put out, they were told they could return. Once they returned, they had to leave again because the fire started right back up again. And this was something that was noticed in December in North Carolina as well, where people saw the fires being put out, completely contained, and then they noticed the fires just start right back up again.
It's flaring back up. Now you can see the flames again.
Southeast is in moderate drought.
So that wind is what started it, and start one fire and just kept going and going and going, just catching everywhere, like all the woods behind us.
And how close did you see those flames? How
right
close
here, right there, right there. See right there?
Officials in the fire.
With all these fires happening at very strange times, and let's not forget that Hurricane Helene had also devastated North Carolina as well around that time, could anything else be happening that the layout of the land needs to change for? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at other news stories that were happening around this same time. Reading this news article back on December 6, 2024 from RaleighNorthCarolina.gov. So this is straight from the government. Regional Smart City Movement, Connected Triangle Plus. What is a Connected Triangle Plus? The triangle encompassing the Raleigh-Durham-Chapel Hill combined statistical area in North Carolina is one of the fastest growing regions in the nation. The article goes on to say about the Connected Triangle Plus, Smart Raleigh is an integral part of a larger collaboration across communities in the Triangle region aimed at building a smart or connected triangle. Our vision recognizes that issues and opportunities do not adhere to city or town boundaries. The potential to be smart extends beyond municipal borders, beyond the confines of the triangle. Social and environmental challenges and opportunities persist, necessitating a broader, inclusive approach. So the plan is not to just turn one city in North Carolina into a smart city. No, North Carolina wants a massive smart region. You can even find articles going back to 2023 that talk about this smart region, like this article here back on July 31st, 2023 from researchtriangle.org. Triangle becoming a smart region built upon smart cities. Here's how. So it kind of makes a lot of sense why we now keep seeing these fires happening in certain locations in North Carolina. And I wouldn't doubt one bit that they are not just going to stop at the triangle. They are saying they want to go even beyond that when it comes to the smart region. Now today, or a couple days ago, North Carolina has had its worst wildfire in quite some time, burning over, again, 3,300 acres. But it's not just North Carolina, it's also Georgia and especially South Carolina. And people have discovered that South Carolina is also going to have a smart city as well in Myrtle Beach. Matter of fact, they don't call it a smart city, they call it a meta city. So when the fact checkers are released from the toilets and sewers that they reside in to fact check the claims that these fires are happening due to a smart city in South Carolina, they'll say, no, that's completely false. It's not a smart city. It's a meta city. Get it right, you conspiracy theorist nut job. There is even a disturbing news clip circulating around on social media when it comes to this new Meta smart city in South Carolina in connection to these wildfires. But this is a very interesting video from Reality Check Period on TikTok, where she goes even further about this new city and these wildfires.
Wildfires and smart city seems to go hand in hand. This is some breaking news brought to you by this crazy cam check. Listen to you guys. South Carolina is currently burning to the ground. More than 175 wildfires raging across South Carolina, consuming over 4,500 acres of land. This is what you need to know. Pay attention. One, like Lahaina, Maui, LA fires, okay, smart city was introduced. Myrtle Beach was coming or becoming a smart city. The state of emergency has been declared. 175 wildfires burning 4,500 acres with zero containment, forced evacuation. Number three, insurance companies became insolvent, exiting the state or increased rates by 40% right before the fires broke out. Last, August 26, 2024, the city of Myrtle Beach formally launching the Smart City Initiative with Living Labs participant. More than 25 companies across the United States, Canada, United Kingdoms has explored the Living Lab program since its inception last year. Tech companies, CocoFlow, Rapid, Polko, Dependbuild, are the first to reach the project launch phase within the company prototypes and their technologies. Now, you tell me, does that sound like a coincidence? I don't think not.
Yes, it's only just a coincidence, according to news articles that are now coming out, saying that the claims between wildfires and the smart city conspiracy theory, quote unquote conspiracy theory, are unsubstantiated. Look at this article here, which was published on March 3rd. Myrtle Beach wildfire reignites unfounded smart city theory. A wildfire has scorched 1,200 acres near Myrtle Beach. Twitter users speculated the fire was intentionally set to destroy the area for the smart city project. The article talks about how the fires are currently raging in North Carolina and South Carolina and the acres that are burning. But this article also goes into how the smart city theory resurfaces. As photos and videos of the wildfire spread across social media, some users quickly speculated that the fires were intentionally set in Myrtle Beach as part of a conspiracy to quote-unquote destroy the area for the quote-unquote smart city project. This same unsubstantiated theory emerged during the Los Angeles fires earlier this year, where people claimed the fires were deliberately started as part of a quote-unquote criminal land grab to build smart cities in line with the United Nations 2030 agenda. Similar theories were also seen following the devastating Lahaina wildfires in Maui, as well as the wildfires in Canada and Spain. PolitiFact has since debunked these claims. This is what really irks me about fact checkers. I mean, how do you claim they're unsubstantiated? Do you just go up to these government agencies and ask them, are you setting these wildfires on purpose to build these smart cities? And when they say, no, we're not doing that, do they just go, well, that clears that up? I mean, how about just putting two and two together? The wildfires are happening in locations where smart cities, and in the case of North Carolina, a smart region, are being built. The article even goes on a list about the previous locations that have smart cities connected to them. In the case of Maui, it has the Healy-Mai 2040 Smart City Plan. And in the case of Los Angeles, there is the 2028 Smart City Initiative. And they go on to say, well, it's just unsubstantiated how these wildfires could be connected to smart cities, even though they need to tear down what's old in order to rebuild this new smart city. Like, I absolutely hate doing any news story that involves fact checkers. And unfortunately, with the type of channel that I am, fact checkers are involved almost 90% of the time. And at first it was funny, but now it's just downright annoying how ignorant they are. Like it's just so outside of the realm of possibility that we can't connect dots with all these wildfires happening in locations where there are actual smart cities to be planned. And now in the case of South Carolina, there are smart cities being built. North Carolina, the smart region. They even list reactions here. Talking about this one reaction, there's a wildfire raging through Myrtle Beach right now. My county has sent firefighters to help out. Oh, and guess what? There just so happens to be a smart city plan for that area. Where have I heard this story before? Yes, we keep hearing these stories. What is even funnier is the fact that this article was designed to quote unquote debunk this conspiracy theory, this smart city conspiracy theory, but towards the end it goes on to say, is Myrtle Beach a part of the smart city plan? In August 2024, the city of Myrtle Beach officially launched its initiative to become a smart city with support from companies relocating to the area. The city introduced the first participants of its living lab, which it described as an innovative public-private partnership designed to support the development of emerging technology and encourage entrepreneurs to use Myrtle Beach as their hub. Yet it's so outside the realm of possibility, it's unsubstantiated, that we cannot connect these wildfires to these smart cities, where again, they have to burn down or take down what's old and rebuild to something new, something smart.
Burning to the ground as we speak, and we still need to talk about it. Good morning, guys. This crazy cam chick is bringing you some of the latest chit chat about what is going on around this fire. So South Carolina is still burning to the ground as we speak, and we still need to talk about it. Good morning, guys. This crazy cam chick is bringing you some of the latest chit chat about what is going on around this fire. So let's talk about it. Yesterday, a viewer had asked me, do we know where these smart cities are popping up? And the answer is yes. I got you. I got a whole map for you. Listen up, guys. Now, they really think that we are stupid. Before anything happens, you need to pay attention what they are doing because it's broadcast everywhere. So there's a news clip here. I will put at the end of the video that you will see. They are letting you know what is coming to a town near you, and you best be prepared and listen, okay? This is what is happening. So what I honestly think is happening in the DFW, or in that area, excuse me, not the DFW, is that they are setting these wildfires intentionally by something called DEW. I need you to look it up. I can't say it on here. So it can easily burn down the area. And then BlackRock comes in, takes it over, buys everything up for cheap, rebuild it, and voila, you get a smart city prison. Now, people think that, electronics are the greatest way, the greatest and latest new thing. But mind you, something goes down, you are left fucking SOL. Okay, this is exactly what happened in La Habana, Amarillo, Texas, and of course in Los Angeles. But yet no one is seeing it. Okay, so this time around, Mark Zuckerberg has his hands in everything. Very concerning, considering that he was at the inauguration. Now, let me tell you, I'm all for Trump, but something is just not adding up, okay? When I see stuff, I call it for what it is. And if I'm wrong, I will apologize. But at this point, it's just the math isn't mathing, all right? So at the very end, I'll put you the map. And this, again, is very concerning. We are still being attacked from within our country, and it's not okay. Something is not right.
The fourth industrial revolution. Talk about the ultimate upgrade. So what does that mean for us here in Myrtle Beach?
Rachel, the overall goal is to improve our quality of life here in Myrtle Beach, and city staff say they're working to do that through new technology, and it's all starting right here in downtown Myrtle Beach.
Myrtle Beach.
It's the second fastest growing city in the entire country. From its 60-mile beach to hosting one of the biggest country music festivals, Myrtle Beach is no doubt an area that has a lot to offer, and plans to bring it to the next level are ahead.
What we're looking to do, or what we're trying to do here, is create an urban environment where technology can help us improve our experiences, whether it's the services you receive from your local government, the experiences you have as a tourist in our town or a visitor in our town, but also, how we conduct business with our businesses.
Myrtle Beach Chief Innovation Officer Howard Waldy IV says he's been working to make Myrtle Beach a smart city since March of 2022. They're teaming up with Jennifer Hotai, co-founder of Osverse and Grand Strand Web3 Guild. Their teams are wanting to make the city more advanced to improve the quality of life for you and your family.
That news article mentions the fourth industrial revolution. Where have I heard that before?
At the same time, we are witnessing rapid technological advances with many opportunities and with artificial intelligence rapidly transforming our production and our lives. And breakthroughs from the fourth industrial revolution provide new opportunities for global prosperity and growth. All those factors will have a profound impact on the future of humanity, provided we are able to work together. To drive future economic growth, we must embrace innovation and foster collaboration across sectors, regions, nations, and cultures to create a more peaceful, inclusive, sustainable, and resilient future. At this critical juncture, the active participation of all stakeholders is essential to ensure a sustainable development path. I'm delighted that close to 2,000 leaders from multiple sectors representing some 80 countries and regions have come to Dalian for this year's meeting.
Thank you so much for watching.
Kofi, follow me.